Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. Today is Tuesday, February 6th, and we're glad you're here to join us. I'll begin by calling the meeting to order. We appreciate Pastor Randy Edwards of Grace Church being here to lead our invocation, and following that, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you bow your hearts with me? Our Heavenly Father, come to you this evening as these, our elected servants and public officials, discuss and deliberate the business of our town and community. I thank you for their service on behalf of our town, and I pray that you would give them wisdom and skill as they do the work of leading and planning and managing. Grant them success in their efforts to see our community thrive. Would their labor on our behalf this evening be personally fulfilling to them? And would you give them joy in seeing the hard work that they do bear fruit and blessing others? Lord, we ask that you would have mercy on our law enforcement personnel and keep them safe as they do the work of protecting us. We thank you for Chief Tilley and for the police department command staff and police officers who very often don't get to see people at their best. Lord, I ask that you would bless our police department with a spirit of humility, fidelity, honor, wisdom, courage, and love as they do the work to maintain and enforce our laws. Have mercy on our emergency fire and rescue service personnel. We thank you for Fire Rescue Chief Aldermen, and we thank you for those who serve as our firefighters and first responders. We ask that you would protect them as they run towards danger and put themselves in harm's way to rescue those in need. Lord, we thank you for all of those who work for our town, whether they work in government, finance, community development, public services, or human resources. Kernersville is a good place to live, work, and raise a family. But each person here makes this town better. And I thank you for them, Lord. This evening, as we do the work of making the good which you have entrusted to us better, we ask that we would be able to speak forthrightly, listen carefully, disagree respectfully, serve graciously, and above all, to honor you in all that we do and say. In the deliberations and actions of this meeting, may your will be done. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. And I'd ask at this time, if you've not been able to find a seat, to take a moment to find a seat. There's plenty here in the front row. They're dispersed throughout the room, so it's important for everyone to be comfortable. So grab a seat, relax. I'm sure if there's someone blocking the aisle, they can slide down. And then if subsequent people come in, if you could help them find a seat as well. Thank you. All right. So it's a full agenda, but I wanted to take a moment. I know many of you who've come to Board of Aldermen meetings in the past have seen that at the beginning we'll often have ceremonial items. And one thing that is really important happened recently, Friday in fact. The town of Kernersville joined other triad communities in declaring this month Go Red for Heart Health. So Alderman Penix attended a ceremony celebrating the 100th year of the American Heart Association and presented a proclamation to that effect. As you go home, travel home from here tonight, if you notice our Founders Park, which is in the middle of downtown, is lit with red lighting for the town of Kernersville to show our support to Go Red for Heart Health. And I want to thank Town Manager Curtis Swisher for helping us get those lights changed out to do that. As we begin tonight, there are several public hearings, and we have procedures about the public hearings printed on the agenda and displayed on the screen. I think another thing that's important to note tonight for our public hearings especially, so a lot of people in this room, there's a lot of strongly held opinions. There are time limits, but it's my hope to always have people have enough time to speak their opinion and to be heard. And in light of that, the acoustics of this room are pretty good, but if you notice, we have microphones to help everybody hear out in the audience, but the microphones also serve another purpose. They help us broadcast this meeting, the sounds and the discussion, debate from this meeting. We have a few cameras in the room, so if you do speak from the podium, you will be broadcast. It's streamed on YouTube and then saved on the Kernersville channel. And so just be aware of that as you make your remarks tonight. And also to show courtesy to the person who is speaking at that moment so that everyone can hear what they have to say. All right. We'll be hearing public hearings 1A and 1B together, and then public hearing C and public hearing D. If you'd like to speak on any of these public hearings, or if you'd like to speak on any public session items, there are speaker cards in the back of the room. If you could fill one out and return it to this front table to our town attorney, Ed Powell, or town manager, Curtis Swisher, then we can allocate the time appropriately. There are time limits, so it's a little different than the planning board. Then we do enforce the time limits. So when an agenda item is denoted as a public hearing, persons attending shall be permitted to address the Board of Aldermen regarding the item under consideration, those speaking in favor speaking first, and those against speaking second. Proponents and opponents shall each be given 20 minutes of time to speak, and may choose to allow one speaker to utilize that time or choose to allocate the time amongst different speakers. In the event that either proponents or opponents have not designated a speaker or speakers to represent that view, the mayor shall divide the 20 minutes by the number of speakers wishing to address the Board of Aldermen, and each such speaker shall be allowed that given time within which to express his or her comments, ideas, and concerns. After the opponents speak, the mayor will allow the proponents 5 minutes for rebuttal. If the proponents choose to exercise this option, the opponents will also have 5 minutes for rebuttal. In the event that the proponents do not present a rebuttal, then the opponents shall be given no further time to speak. And again, we'll hear public hearing 1A on the Kernersville Development Plan, continued from January 3rd. Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, for consideration of an amendment to the Kernersville Development Plan to amend the land use plan from commercial neighborhood to mixed residential density for the pins displayed on the screen and listed in the agenda, containing 16.175 plus or minus acres, zoning docket KDP 68, and consideration of a resolution amending the Kernersville Development Plan. And item 1B, public hearing, rezoning continued from January 3rd. Jason Ewing, agent for Clayton Properties Group, Inc., applicant for the Shepherd Center of Kernersville, requesting a single-phase conditional use rezoning from GOS to RM8C residential multifamily for properties located south of the intersection of Linville Springs Road and Wooddale Drive, containing a total of 16.175 plus or minus acres, and being all of the pins listed on the screen and the agenda. Zoning docket K59A1, requested use residential building townhome, and consideration of an ordinance rezoning said property. I have signed up to speak Jason Ewing, Randall Jenkins, and Keith Atwell in favor, and I have 11 individuals signed up in opposition. So we'll begin this with a presentation by our Community Development Director, Ms. Catherine Garner.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Our first case tonight is KDP 68 and K759A1, which, as you noted, will be presented together. The land use plan amendment is from the designation of neighborhood commercial to residential mixed density. The parcel is located at the southwestern corner of Linville Springs Road and Piney Grove Road, and outlined in red on the screen. It is associated with the subsequent rezoning case, which is from general office special to residential multifamily conditional. The map on the screen shows the property in relation to the existing land use plan and the surrounding area. So surrounding properties are currently designated as low density residential, mixed residential, high density residential, and school. The land use plan defines commercial neighborhood as commercial neighborhood scale land use is established to provide non-intrusive commercial areas that provide commercial development convenient to residential areas and are located along major thoroughfares. They are laid out to be small areas to prevent them from promoting the creation of commercial strips. The land use plan defines mixed residential density as being established in areas that are transitional land use areas and are also located along major thoroughfares. The mixed residential areas provide a supply of undeveloped land to accommodate the growing demand of smaller owner-occupied housing units, such as cluster homes, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, and condos. The demand for mixed residential is being driven by demographic changes of smaller family sizes, single parents, and an aging population. Rising land and development cost is also making higher density housing more attractive since they can be more affordable. Mixed residential developments offer developers the opportunity to construct several types of housing in different markets, thus enabling them to complete the project in a more rapid, cost-effective method. Staff finds that changing the land use plan is necessary to support the rezoning to residential multifamily conditional. Existing land uses in the immediate vicinity are low-density residential and commercial neighborhood. Traffic improvements to Linville Springs Road are included as a condition in the rezoning case. And commercial development in this site is unlikely due to the gas easement, which bisects the property, as well as the lack of access points from Piney Grove Road. The change to residential mixed density will allow for the construction of a transitional land use project of owner-occupied single-family residential to act as a buffer between the school and the commercial uses along Piney Grove Road and the existing single-family detached housing in the area. Staff's recommendation on the land use plan amendment is approval of the resolution to change the designation of the property. This was heard at the December Planning Board meeting, and a Planning Board's recommendation is denial of the resolution to change the designation of the property in question. This was the vote at the December Planning Board meeting of those in favor of the denial, those against the denial, and then those absent. Are there any questions on the land use plan amendment before I move on to the rezoning case? The associated rezoning case is case 759A1. The petitioner is Jason Ewing as the agent for the applicant. Applicant is Clayton Properties Group, and the property owner is the Shepherd Center of Kernersville. The proposed zoning amendment is from general office special to residential multifamily conditional. That special to conditional terminology changed with the adoption of North Carolina General Statutes 160D. It is 16.175 acres, and again, outlined in red on the screen. The applicant has proposed the single use of residential building townhouse. A residential building which contains 3 or more dwelling units, each occupies 1 zoning lot. This is a type of single-family development as defined in our ordinance and as defined by North Carolina general statutes, because each unit is on its own lot as opposed to an apartment where they share a common lot. Surrounding zoning is residential 12, residential single-family 12, limited business special and general office special, and then more residential single-family 12. The school is also zoned RS 12. Some of the properties located across the street, across Piney Grove Road, limited business, and then RM 12 and RM 18S are some of the commercial sites that exist along Piney Grove Road. The site plan that has been proposed and submitted has gone through numerous changes. The applicants have responded to all the comments that staff have provided, and we feel that it has improved from their initial submittal. The final plan that's before you tonight shows 97 townhouse units. It meets the buffer yard requirement on the southern, western, and northern border, and the highway corridor overlay district street yard and parking requirements are being met. The southernmost street provides a stub out for potential cross connection to Piney Grove Road when and if the southeastern lot were to develop and a connection were to be desired. NCDOT is anticipating commencement of the improvements at Linville Springs Road and Piney Grove Road, with construction beginning as early as 2024. They are actually on site on the North Main Street side, and construction has actually commenced at this time. Roadway improvements to Linville Springs Road will be required prior to the issuance of building permits. When North Carolina Department of Transportation reviewed this plan, they as Linville Springs Road is a NCDOT street, they are requiring a dedicated right turn lane into the development and then a dedicated left turn lane into the development. This property is in the Highway Corridor Overlay District, which governs street yard parking and signage requirements. They are being met as shown in the site plan, and then this is confirmed when construction plans come in for review by staff. The property is also currently in a neighborhood scale commercial overlay district. The applicant is requesting removal of the neighborhood scale commercial overlay district. The purpose of this district was to encourage neighborhood commercial centers while establishing building and design standards to enhance the image of residential areas and the associated commercial areas. But the neighborhood scale commercial overlay would no longer be applicable if this were to be approved, because it really does govern the commercial development as opposed to residential development. The applicant did provide some building design elevations. They are shown on the screen with a variety of elevations provided. So they're two-story front-loaded townhouse, which means the garage is accessed off the front with a covered front stoop. The provided elevations show each unit of a townhouse to have a unique facade from those around it, offering differences in window fenestration, glazing, and location of garage and front door. These are some more examples of the product that were submitted with the application. We discussed the land use plan previously. It's currently commercial neighborhood, and the proposed land use plan amendment would be to mixed residential density. Staff's recommendation that was presented to the planning board in December is to approve the rezoning request from general office special to residential multifamily conditional and remove the neighborhood scale commercial overlay district, and approval of the site plan and the conditions that were presented in the staff report. Planning board made a recommendation at the December planning board meeting to deny the requested amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance of the town by removing the neighborhood scale commercial overlay and rezoning the property. They did not find that it was reasonable and it was outside the public interest, so they recommended denial of our motion. This was the vote of the planning board members present in favor of the denial, against the denial, and then those that were absent from the December meeting. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does the board have any questions at this time? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open. Given we have a public hearing on the development plan and the rezoning, the town manager and town attorney have recommended that we allow 40 minutes for each side in this situation. So we'll begin with the developer. I have Jason Ewing, Randall Jenkins, and Keith Atwell signed up to speak in favor. Jason, how long do you need?
5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, Randall, how long do you need? And Keith, how long do you need?
5 minutes.
Okay, all right. We'll run the clock down. Do we have it set for 40? We'll run the clock down from 40 minutes. So it sounds like we're not going to have to call time on any of y'all if you go over a minute or two.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Board of Aldermen. I'm Jason Ewing, representative for Clayton Properties Group, DBA Shugart Homes.
And if you could give your address.
Yes, 221 Jonestown Road, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We are seeking a conditional use rezoning for the vacant land at 115 Linville Springs Road, currently owned by the Shepherd Center of Kernersville. So you can see on the slide on your screen some information about the current real estate market in Kernersville. We feel that the townhome project that is proposed meets a unmet housing need in the town of Kernersville. Currently, the average sales price in Kernersville is around $342,000 a unit. The average days on market is around 33 days. However, the average days on market for property under $300,000 is only 22 days, which we believe shows a higher demand for that better priced product for the new home buyer, first-time home buyer, or single professionals. As you can see, the graph on the left, it shows a distribution of all the new home sales in red and the resales in blue. And if you can see, there's a small black dot where if we were selling these townhomes today, that is the relative location where they would be priced. And again, it meets a market demand that's below the current new home sales for Kernersville. The map on the right, you'll see all of the new home sales for the last 12 months, how they are spread around the town of Kernersville. And there's a large opening there in the core of the town of Kernersville. You can see the black dot on the map, which is the site that we are looking at this evening. We feel that our proposed townhome development will fill a housing need in Kernersville. The product we propose, as you saw on the staff report, the townhomes. Our townhomes are 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths with a 1-car garage. We had some concerns from our community information meeting about the upkeep of the property, and our townhome communities, along with all of our communities, are managed by a homeowners association and a property management company. They help adhere the strict standards for our neighborhood's appearances. Our CEO, Stephen Mungo, he frequently reminds us that we want our neighborhoods to look as good in 20 years as they do the day that we are building and selling in that community. So we task our homeowners association and property managers to carry that out, to keep the properties to a high standard of maintenance and appearance. Here is the proposed site plan. Again, reiterating some of the information that was in the staff report, it is 16.175 acres plus or minus, 97 townhome units, which all of the townhome units are 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1-car garage. You will see on the map where we've called out, we added an additional 40 parking spaces to the site plan to accommodate visitors, guests. We know that street parking can be a concern with congestion in the streets and safety for emergency vehicle access. So we wanted to make sure that there was ample accessory parking to accommodate guests and to alleviate unnecessary street parking. You can see near the center of the development, there is an active open space off of the one parking lot. That is an active open space that we've designated for a dog park and other recreational area, whether it be a covered shelter or a small playground. We have yet to decide on that, but it will be an active open space, which will be an amenity to the residents. The retention ponds, there is a large retention pond on the northern part of the site that abuts Linville Springs Road. That retention pond, we intend on it being more of a feature to the community, putting a fountain in that pond, which will again add to the appearance to the community and an asset to the residents that live in this community. We have also added a sidewalk connection from the entrance of our neighborhood going eastbound on Linville Springs and connecting to the current stubbed out sidewalk that is at the convenience store at the corner of Linville Springs Road and Piney Grove Road. Additionally, as mentioned in the staff report, we have the proposed road improvements to Linville Springs Road, which are the right-hand turn lane for westbound traffic, or left-hand turn lane for westbound traffic, and a right-hand turn lane for eastbound traffic. At the southernmost point of the site where the T-stub is, you'll notice there is a proposed walkway there. We've attempted to reach out to school staff a few months ago and haven't heard any response back, but we would really like to install a walkway connecting our townhome community to the Kernersville Middle School. We feel that that will create a sense of community for those that live in the townhomes that have children that go to Kernersville Middle School, and also allow a safer pathway to their school walking through a private townhome development rather than walking out on the streets of Linville Springs Road and Piney Grove Road. This slide just, again, highlights some of the details of the site plan. It is 97 townhome units. Those are broken up mostly into 5 and 4 unit buildings. We have 1 3-unit building. The buffer yards, as mentioned in the staff report, the 15-foot type 2 buffer yard will go along all of the residentially zoned property, and along Linville Springs Road, it will be a enhanced 22-foot street yard buffer with a berm as per your development ordinance. And the site coverage, impervious surface, 2/3 of the site will be considered open space, non-impervious surface. One concern that we heard at the community information meeting was regarding stormwater. There were some concerns of stormwater issues across Linville Springs Road in the Spring Lake Estates neighborhood. And this map sort of shows you can see the arrows that show the direction of the stormwater. The top half of the site plan will drain to the first pond, which is along Linville Springs. And then the bottom portion of the site plan, which is in blue, will drain into the pond that is on the northwestern part of the site. These arrows show how that stormwater will be dispersed. And if you can see the chart, the project engineer worked up the calculations for the stormwater, and it actually shows, because we'll be collecting the stormwater from this site in these ponds, that stormwater will be dispersed in a more controlled fashion than if the site was undeveloped and the stormwater was just running off of the site. While developing the site won't do anything to mitigate the issues that the neighbors are experiencing across the street, it certainly won't negatively impact those neighborhood with the stormwater runoff from the site. And then, just as a reminder, that our site will adhere to all state, federal, and local government environmental regulations pertaining to stormwater containment and disbursement. In conclusion, the mixed density residential land use designation is harmonious with the surrounding residential land uses. It allows for the construction of a variety of single-family housing types and furthers the stated goals by providing a variety of housing options for those living in the town of Kernersville. And again, the RM8 conditional zoning will allow for higher density single-family options and act as a buffer between the existing and future commercial development along Piney Grove Road and the existing residential development. It will require us to improve Linville Springs Road in installation of the turn lane in the center of Linville Springs Road for westbound traffic and a dedicated right turn lane in the eastbound traffic. And this project will help to increase the variety and availability of owner-occupied single-family homes within the town of Kernersville. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins? If you could state your name and your address for us, please.
Sure. Randall Jenkins, 7894 Bufflehead Court in Greensboro. Good evening, Mayor Morgan, fellow aldermen. Again, my name's Randall Jenkins. I'm the first vice president of the Shepherd Center here in Kernersville. I really wanted to give you a background on why we are selling this land. The Shepherd Center bought the property in November of 2018 with the intent of constructing a building to house the Shepherd Center in one location so we could combine both the administration and the senior center into one place. During the design phase, the construction costs were to the point where it just did not make financial sense to construct a new building. At that time, the board decided to start looking for an existing building in the town of Kernersville to purchase. In 2020, that building was found on Grayland Street. It was a perfect fit and allowed us to move in quickly and consolidate those two locations into one place. It also has allowed us to increase our programming and our services to the Kernersville community. After that purchase on Grayland, we decided as a board to sell the original land. We are not in the business of owning real estate. We're in the business of helping the senior adults and adults with disabilities. Selling this land will allow for the Shepherd Center to expand our services further to help the people of Kernersville, secure our operations, and continue our mission of enriching adults who are aging or have disabilities. This will have a positive impact on our community and our citizens. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Atwell. And again, if you could restate your name and your address for the record.
Hello, I'm Keith Atwell. I live at 957 La Plata Drive here in Kernersville. Good evening, Mayor, Aldermen, and neighbors. No one has asked me to be here. I do not know the applicant, the landowner, or anyone involved. I work in the semiconductor industry, and I have many friends, colleagues, coworkers who would be interested in purchasing a first home. And every time they look at real estate listings, they really feel priced out of the market. These are people under the age of 35, educated professionals with decent salaries. And in the current real estate market, it is difficult for them to find a place to purchase. The homes, the townhomes here would be perfect for them. They're in the range that they'd be comfortable buying, especially with the current interest rates. I do myself feel lucky to have locked in a rate around 3% when I purchased a property here in Kernersville about 4.5 years ago. And I'd really like to see my friends be able to, purchase a home, get a bit of the American dream that we all cherish so dearly. I think they would make great neighbors to us, and I'd like to see more housing available because there is such a housing shortage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in favor of the proposal? Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the opponents. I have Becky Swain and Lisa Voss, Bruce Boyer, Tom Lyotard, Dave Wegelat, Billy Lawson, John Evans, Scott Mercer, Kathy Sechrist, Tom Russell, Clarence Barrier, and Sarah Sabonis. Did I miss anybody? This will give us approximately 3.5 minutes per person, and General Gorham will let you know if your time is up. Again, we'll start the clock at 40 and run the clock down. So Ms. Swain?
Mayor Morgan and fellow aldermen, Becky Muston Swain, 670 Dobson Street in Kernersville. I am the last of the Muston family of Muston and Crutchfield Grocery Store, so you know I've been around a long time. My concern tonight is the request of the rezoning of this property. Our farm joins this property on the west side, and right now we have 9 acres of hayfield that is exactly right beside of this property. We also have 2 or more acres of garden space that is being used. Last year, our hayfield produced 29,000 pounds of hay from these fields. I am concerned with this development that it's being considered that our land and our green spaces would be very enticing to the folks who live there and for their recreation, for soccer fields, throwing frisbees, flying kites, even walking their dogs. If this were to happen, it's very accessible to this property too. If this were to happen, it would absolutely destroy our hayfields. And if that would happen, it would destroy the livelihood for the folks who are making the hay. Any consideration that you could give us for our situation would be very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next I have Bruce Boyer.
Good evening, Mayor and Aldermen. My name is Bruce Boyer. I live at 108 Rockford Court in Spring Lakes Estates, which is the subdivision that's directly across from the proposed entrance of the project. I believe very strongly in the value of the Shepherd Center, and I'm extremely pleased with the facility that they now have on Grayland Street. And I know they have an investment in this land, and I hope that they can reap the benefit of the investment. However, I am concerned about this particular development according to the site plan. It's a 16-acre site that will have 23 buildings with either 3, 4, or 5 attached townhouses in those buildings, totaling 97 units for a density of 6 units per acre. And it's located right across the street from a low-density residential area. I know this is called a transitional land use between the school and the commercial areas on Piney Grove, but it's a major contrast with the low-density residential right across the street from it. I think this particular design will give an urban feel to our community. Has limited parking. I think we'll be playing musical chairs to try and get one of those 40 parking places, and I'll speak to that in just a minute. I think parked cars will dominate the visual appearance of the neighborhood there in this subdivision. The building size, as I understand it, is 60 feet deep for each building, and each of the townhome units are 20 foot wide, but 11 and a half feet of that is the garage. So there's very little other frontage, and the frontage is the narrow part of the building. The 97 units, if families average 4 people per unit, would be about 400 or 388 residences in that development. It does meet the 194 parking places in the standard, but the calculation is based on one car being in the garage and another car blocking it in that narrow one-car driveway. So it'd be a real hassle for the homeowners to try and park in the right order, or if they go to work at different times, there'll be a lot of shuffling around of cars. I really think that the homeowners of the townhomes that are near those 40 parking places, some of those are on-street parking in a little wider area, and some of those are in the center of the property. I think the homeowners that live closest to those will probably use some of those extra parking places just so that they don't have to shuffle cars around, and that's where we get into the musical chairs. I think people will want to have guests come and visit them, and they need to have parking places to do that. I believe the driveways are 20-foot long and fairly narrow driveways. It takes, as I understand it, about 17 and a half feet for the length of a car if it's pulled up close to the garage doors. So I think the cars will be parked very close to the street, and that's part of the visual that I think is distasteful. Their driveways are close together, as I understand it, most likely not leaving room for on-street parking, which again makes those extra 40 parking places to be very valuable and probably occupied a lot by residences just for their own convenience. The developer, I think, did what he needed to do to try and get as much in that particular property as possible. But in so doing, I think it makes that development really feel urban. If you approve of this, I don't think when you drive through and it's done, you'll be pleased with the results. The planning board did vote 5-1 recommending denial of the site plan, and I hope that you take that in consideration. I am not against I'm not against developing this property, but in my opinion, this particular plan is too tight and too dense. Kernersville thrives to be a high-quality community, and I'm not sure that this contributes to what we want to be as our high-quality community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Tom?
Tom Lyotard, 246 Aquaview Court. I've been a resident for Kernersville for almost 22 years, living in my house off of Aquaview Court. Traffic over the years is getting worse and worse. This will just basically contribute more to the traffic in that area. Even if they widen the roads and do stuff, still not sure. With the school being right there, it's a little bit of a pain. Environmentally, we do a lot of wildlife in that area. You know, see plenty of deers running through the road, foxes, everything. I'm not sure if that's going to chase them away or not. Definitely more noise pollution. I've lived in New Jersey for a good part of my life and seeing plenty of townhomes and stuff, and it does get noisy there. I don't think the people on Linville Springs, when they bought their houses, if they knew there was going to be 97 townhomes there, would actually buy those houses. Cheaper housings doesn't always mean the right people going in there. I do have some rentals, and I see a lot more out-of-state, out-of-town people purchasing lower housing and renting those out. So I don't think that's a good thing for our town. If you have people out-of-state renting houses out, and I'll give you a perfect example. My parents live in Kernersville as well. House across the street, rented out from somebody in Philadelphia. front door was left open. It took me 2 days to get a hold of somebody for them to tell them, hey, your front door is left open, your people left. So I don't know if that's a good idea. And I'm not opposed to developing the land, but maybe something a little bit better like single-family homes. Something maybe like 25, 30 of them wouldn't be so bad, but 97, on average, that's probably with how many cars our gentleman was just talking about. That's probably about at least 140 cars extra right there going down that road, especially during school time. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dave? Dave Regualr.
My name is Dave Whitegan. I live at 801 Wooddale Drive, directly across the street where they're planning on putting this housing develop. I am totally against this for two reasons. One is the flooding that we have currently today, and I do have pictures here to show you the flooding that goes, and a couple of the aldermen have been by my house and seen the flooding that we get. Secondly is the road traffic that we're going to have there. If you look at the road coming out of Wooddale Drive now, we get a lot of traffic. Now we're going to add four-way traffic at Wooddale Drive, 200 yards up the road. We're going to have Piney Grove and Linville Drive traffic. And it's already hard enough at 7 o'clock in the morning to get out, especially when the school buses and that are running. So I think the traffic problem is one of the major ones. Again, like some of the people have said of the parking over across the street, you're going to have 200 cars over there coming out on Wooddale trying to make a left or a right. If they're making a left, they're in deep trouble because they'll never get out. So I'm totally against this project completely. I'm not totally against developing houses there, but I'd like to see single-family homes or even a duplex homes would be all right. That would eliminate a lot of the traffic. But we have another housing development down on Kernersville Road, and those people are going to come up Linville to get out to Main Street. So you're going to have a traffic jam there. I haven't heard yet from here whether they're going to put a roundabout up at Linville Road or they're just going to put a traffic light there, and we all hope for the best. Right now, people are cutting through the gas station there to get around all the traffic jam that they have. So that's all I have to say about this, but I'm totally against this. And if you'd like to see the pictures of my flood, it affects not only myself, my neighbor across the street, Albert, his yard gets flooded, and 9 homes going down Rockford Road. Their backyards are always flooded out with 2 to 5 feet of water coming down there during the rainy season. The other thing is, all this water is coming from Piney Grove Road, down Linville, and into my yard. I have 2 24-inch pipes coming to my yard. And guess where all the garbage comes? Down there through the yard, and we have to pick up the garbage every time we have a rainstorm. So unless the city can fix one problem, they're not going to help the other one. Across the street, you're going to put 2 catch-all basins. Well, to me, those are mosquito ponds is what they are. They end up being a lot of mosquitoes. Where's that water go to when it floods over, when it fills up, when those ponds fill up? I'm from the north, and I've seen a lot of these ponds, and they just basically flood over onto the street. So I'm totally against this. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you'd like to hand the photos to our town attorney, Ed Powell, he'll send them up to the board. The widening you're talking about is an NCDOT project at Piney Grove and Linville Springs, and the NCDOT plans to put a traffic light there. Okay, Billy Lawson.
Good evening. My name is Billy Lawson. I've lived on Linville Springs Road for 46 years. My main problem is too many units on a small section of land. It says 16.17 acres, but we have a major gas line running through the center of it, which takes up about 2 acres. You cannot put a dwelling on this right of way. Through the years, Little Springs Road, the traffic has gotten horrendous. It's the only east-west cut-through road north of town. It has the only convenience store north of town. This store probably does 7 figures in sales a year. We have 3 rest homes within a mile of this road, 2 fire stations within a mile of this road. We have a small city in the woods on Kerner Road. Hundreds of these people take Little Springs Road, going to the convenience store, going to the middle school, going to the elementary school. We have large dump trucks taking demolition stuff to the large dump on Piney Grove Road. But mainly I'm opposed to the number of units per acre, and all the other houses are basically 2 houses per acre. And this road will eventually be the outer loop, which will bring even more traffic. And as far as these units, some of them could be rentals, a lot of them could be rentals. You could have 8 to 10 people in one of them. You could have 5 cars with people going to a unit. That's hypothetical, but it could happen. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Okay, John Evans.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Board of Aldermen. I'm John Evans, live at 248 Rockford Road. I've lived there since 1986. I've been there a pretty good while. And my main concern is the traffic also. I think that's one of the biggest issues. I've seen a lot of traffic, and usually when in the mornings, if you have the backup from the school, they will cut through either on Hedrick or Kingston, come over and hit Rockford Road, then go out Wooddale. And so we've had that when school first started, which created a big mess. I mean, it was traffic, and they fly. I have called the police department, talked to Jason many times about how people go up and down that road, and even in our neighborhood, how they get out. But my main concern is the traffic. I know eventually something's going to be over there, and like most of them have said that have spoken, single-family homes, that would be so much better. You know, you take all those cars coming out all during the day, it's going to be a lot of traffic. But if it's not inappropriate, this time, you know, we've been represented very well here each time we've been. If it would be pleasing to you, could I ask everybody just to stand up that's here from this, on this, to show you how many are involved? Would y'all just stand up, anybody here against this? As you can see, we have a good representation, and I've seen a lot of comments on Next Door Neighbor about this. So I appreciate your time, and I just pray that y'all will make the right decision.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Okay, Scott Mercer.
Mayor, Alderman, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Lawyer, Curtis, I'm Scott Mercer, 952 Aquaview. You know, I've heard everybody's comments, and I heard the presentation on the 97 homes. But I think we're missing something along the path here. The aldermen long ago approved that land for 42 homes. Then the planning board made it difficult for the builder to build. So he abandoned the plans. The Shepherd Center comes along, asks for rezoning to put that commercial building in. Nobody was presented at the Board of Aldermen to complain about it. But here we are today trying to put townhomes, whatever you want to phase them as, next to single residents. They will do nothing for our home values to begin with. So if Kernersville, and pardon the pun, but there's people on the board that live in Spring Lake Estates, and they're infected. As far as the runoff goes, every time it rains, does anybody know where that water goes? Anybody know where that water goes? It goes in the Kernersville Walker Pond that they decided that we're going to run all the runoff into there. My backyard's been flooded. Pete's backyard's been flooded. So we're going to put more water there. It's just an unhealthy situation. And sooner or later, that dam will break. Then the town's going to have to deal with it. I'd like to address the traffic issue. 2 years ago, we approved the housing development up on Dobson Street, which was a contentious vote. Those homes are not built yet. So the effect of that traffic still is not even realized on Linville Springs. Every day, at schools in session, we have school buses that travel twice a day to and from Winston on Linville Springs to the school. It's a cluster. Now with GPSs, you got dump trucks, tractor trailer trucks on Linville Springs now. It's just an accident waiting to happen. And if you drive Linville Springs, the road is broken up now. Who's going to repave it? If it gets repaved, excuse me. So, I'm not opposed to the Shepherd Center selling that land, and I wish them the best. I am opposed that that is not the purpose for that land. And if you're going to have a traffic light 200 feet away from the entrance of that development, where are we going? It's bad. It's just not a smart bit. Redevelop it for homes, single family, but don't put duplexes and townhouses and everything else in everybody's neighborhood. There are none currently, and if we want to ruin Spring Lake Estates' value, let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer. All right, Kathy Sechrist.
I'm not talking about the Linville, I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Your card got mixed in with that. All right. Mr. Russell.
Hi there. Good evening, Mayor, Alderman. My name's Thomas Russell, and I live at 208 Linville Springs Road. We've been there probably it'll be about 4 years this June. And I have to say, I'm really concerned about the traffic situation like others have already alluded to. And I think Dave pointed out that, we can hope for the best, but hope is not like a strategy when it comes to planning, town planning. And not every square foot of land has to be developed in Kernersville. You've all seen the development, but in this particular area, our property at 208 Linville Springs Road is also prone to flooding. And that's a huge problem. I'm not sure exactly what effect these townhomes will have on it, but you're going to have additional runoff, that is being trapped now through the woods and the grounds there. That who knows what that's going to look like. But the traffic situation is really challenging. For all of us. I think that's probably been one of the big concerns or the main concerns that's been addressed. And again, hope is not a strategy here with any type of planning or thoughtful development. These homes look very nice that Shugart's planning, but again, the density is extremely high. I don't know what type of traffic studies have been done for Linville Springs Road. I'd like to see them if there's any. But right now, I mean, there's cars speeding through there, trucks speeding through there, and there's no enforcement. So if you're not going to enforce a speed limit and you're going to add to the problem, that's just compounding things for the worse in your community. We've lived here since 2007, previously in Abington, and really love it. But, I mean, the other thing that we're kind of concerned about is what effect, this will have on home values. There's been no transparency about what these units are going to sell for. And there's not even been transparency in terms of what these turn lanes are going to look like, where the right turn lane is going to go into, where the center turn lane is going to be, and is the whole road going to have to be widened? So there's just a lack of transparency here too that concerns me as a citizen. We're going to find out one day, part of your front yard is going to be taken away, and we didn't have to tell you because we're the community of Kernersville. I don't like that. And, so those are my primary concerns. I'm also, haven't heard anything. There's been no communication, no transparency about this traffic light that the mayor has alluded to. We've gotten no information about that. And I don't know if we have to, when it would be installed or when it would happen, but that's another thing that you're going to need some sort of control of the traffic and enforcement of your speed limits. So since these things are not being handled right now, I'm against this project. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Barrier.
Thank you, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. I'm totally against this development that they want to put in, mainly because it is not harmonious to the neighborhood surrounding it. All the homes in this area are single-family homes on nice lots and well kept. And these townhouses are not harmonious to this neighborhood. Next of all, we haven't seen the impact of the Macy Grove Road extension on Linville Springs Road. I think all of you know that Macy Grove Road is going to intersect directly on Linville Springs Road. And when that does, that is going to be a thoroughfare from everybody on, the north side of Kernersville, wanting to go to the south side of Kernersville, rather than go through the middle of town. They're going to cut right through, and I don't blame them. Take the new bypass, Mason Grove Road, right through Linville Springs Road. There's a big housing development, in case somebody's looking for a house, needing a home. Down on Dobson Street, they're building a bunch of them. And please tell those folks that there are homes being built nearby that they will be able to buy much sooner than this development, if it is approved, which I hope it's not. And the third thing that I want to say is, Linville Springs Road is not designed for the traffic it's got now. Piney Grove Road, 20 years ago, was over capacity. Since then, there have been 3 developments placed on Piney Grove Road, which increased the traffic. The Julian Pond development at that time was told, we'll have 2 exits going out of our development onto Piney Grove Road. Well, there's only one. Where's the other one? We're going to put that in when they put in the bypass road in Kernersville. That's been 20 years ago. All that traffic's feeding out on Piney Grove Road. 2 schools, a fire department, that one convenience store. I love it. It's convenient for me, but it does take in a lot of traffic of people that are outside of our neighborhood. And I hope this board tonight will agree with the planning board when they denied this rezoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barrier. Then I have Sarah Sabonis.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Jane Sabanis. I live at 104 McCoy Road, which is 0.3 miles from the proposed rezoning site. I'm speaking here, obviously, against it. I have multiple points. First of being affordable housing. Per the staff report, the hope for the proposed development is to increase the variety and availability of owner-occupied single-family homes within Kernersville. Owner-occupied is an important part of the Kernersville development and land use plans. Only 54% of Kernersville residents own their homes. In order for homes to be owner-occupied, they must be affordable. A rule of thumb in real estate is to never spend more than 2.5 times your annual salary. So, according to the Census Bureau, the median income of Kernersville is $66,000. That's $165,000 is 2.5 times. On the August 30th meeting with the developer, they stated the price of these units would be $225,000 to $250,000. That is not affordable, and that is not factoring in homeowners association dues, which, I don't know if you know this, homeowners associations have been known to go bankrupt, which causes the maintenance costs, like getting a new roof for a 5-unit dwelling, to be funded by the town. And also, according to the Planned Development Act, or Planned Community Development Act in this state, HOAs are also able to foreclose on your house for fines. I don't think that's something that we really want to have happening in our community. The staff report and land use plan both mention aging populations as the target demographic for the mixed residential density zoning. I'm not sure if you're aware, these are 2-story structures. Aging population doesn't really like going up and down stairs. So I don't believe that this is actually the target demographic. As others have stated, there is that 50-foot wide natural gas easement. It is going to be paved over per their design. They need to have permission granted by Piedmont Natural Gas. Have they got that? I don't know. They also plan on putting a manhole there, which is also something that requires written permission from our utilities. Due to the built-upon area of this plan being 36.8%, a detailed stormwater management plan is required. As you guys stated, your lots are already flooding on Linville Springs. How will the further development impact the existing residents? And based on this built-upon area, this is a high-density development. Don't call it mixed density. Call it what it is. It is high density. The staff report also states that an additional exit on Piney Grove Road is planned. As Clarence said, that never happened for Julian Pond 20 years ago. Why do you think it's going to happen here? Regarding the developer themselves, I know I have a lot to say. I'm sorry. They are a subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway. They're not a local company. They are currently facing federal litigation for violations of the Federal Clean Water Act for a development in Durham. This lawsuit was brought forth in September. They're facing ongoing litigation. In 2023, they were also fined by the Alabama Department of Environmental Management for sediment and stormwater runoff being at unacceptable levels. This proposed development site is part of the Blues Creek Water Supply Watershed Protection Area, per that little sign on Linville Springs Road. I don't have faith in this developer doing the right thing. They are already been fined and they're facing federal litigation. As others stated, traffic is an issue. At the November 14th Board of Aldermen meeting, y'all passed a resolution stating that there needed to be a Linville Springs extension study done. And in that resolution, you said, Linville Springs Road is not currently designed to handle the increase in traffic associated with the Macy Grove Road extension or the extension of Linville Springs Road to the John Deere campus. So that is a problem. We don't know what those numbers look like. I know it's a pain to go up and down Linville Springs Road. And my last point is, if you approve this, both aspects of this, the land use plan and the rezoning, the land use plan vote is not conditional like the rezoning. It will permanently make this, until you guys decide to vote again, a mixed residential density area. That also welcomes mobile home parks, things like that. Of course, that will have to come against the planning board and everything, but I want you to keep in mind that the land use plan part of this is not conditional like the rezoning. I'm not against expansion, and I welcome new residents to this town. I've lived here for 4 years. I have 2 young boys. I love it here. I'm against high density development in an area with insufficient infrastructure to withstand such rapid growth. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in opposition? Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll ask the developer if they'd like to do a rebuttal. If you do, then the opponents also may do a rebuttal.
Madam Mayor and Board of Aldermen, some of the concerns that were presented by the residents, a couple I'd like to address. So the first one, Ms. Swaim, who owns the adjacent land to the west, concerned about occupants of the townhome development using her land for recreation. We would certainly be willing to work with her on enhancing that buffer yard that go between our property lines, whether it's enhancing the size of the buffer yard from a 15-foot to a 20-foot or adding a decorative fence. We could work that out with her and staff to see what would be most acceptable by her. But we're more than welcome or willing to do that. Parking concerns that were brought up, we too felt that there was a need for additional parking. That's why we added more parking spaces. If the board feels that there needs to be more than what we've proposed, we're certainly willing to revisit the site plan and determine where we might be able to get additional parking spaces in to accommodate more overflow parking. And one of the concerns brought up, I believe, was that the parking spaces would be used by residents as an overflow. That's something that we could mitigate by just having in the HOA, the restrictive covenants, that those spaces are for guest parking, and we can have that posted accordingly and have the HOA management company to handle that situation. The home values concern that was brought up with appraisals, this would be a attached single-family dwelling, which would be not looked at as a comparison to detached single-family dwellings from an appraisal standpoint. So we don't feel that would negatively impact any of the property values of the existing single-family residents. Traffic concerns that have been brought up. I did have a conversation with a traffic engineering group here in the Triad that gave me some data. Difference between single-family detached and attached housing. And they said that based on the Institute of Traffic Engineers guidebook, that single-family detached housing generates more trips per day than single-family attached. Single-family attached was about 70% of the daily trips that single-family detached housing had. And then finally, the stormwater runoff concerns. I just reference back to the map that our project engineer put together to show the calculations of the stormwater runoff from the site undeveloped, which would be the current runoff that you're seeing from that site, the improvement to the site with the addition of the storm ponds, and if we need to construct those storm ponds to handle more capacity and disperse the stormwater even slower than what is mandated by law, we can have those conversations with staff to determine what would be appropriate in making modifications to the stormwater devices. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we had a lot of speakers and we have 10 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone who spoke before who'd like to speak again? In opposition? Okay, I've got one. Any others? What's your name?
Phil Willis.
Oh. All right, we'll start with Phil Willis and then I'll represent Sechrist.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Mayor. Phil Willis, 949 Aquaview Drive, Kernersville. Just a few things. Nobody's mentioned if there are accidents on 40, is jammed. Would the Macy Grove Road be a flood or an outlet for people to come through town? Anybody who's drove that road understands that the traffic's bad. They're stopping to let cars in and out. They're stopping for buses. So you throw a stoplight in on top of that, that's going to make it fun. But what happens to people who don't want to do that? They're going to try to go out the back way. What is that? Has anybody studied the impact of people trying to get out on the other end of Linville Springs and get out that way and what that's going to do to the city going through there? So a few things. Love Shepherd Center. Don't really mind the development, but I also told that North Carolina DOT handles the roads. So basically, if I understand it, we can build whatever we want. They have to deal with it later. So we got to suffer with all this until they decide if they want to widen the road. Those turn lanes, I don't know if I understand it correctly. Is that still going to feed into a 2-lane road? So all of these factors just basically go to say we got to plan well. We want to develop, we want to do things, that's fine. But you've got to look at the flow, and waiting 4 or 5 years for maybes, I don't think is a wise strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Scott?
Thank you again for the opportunity. I want to circle back around about the cost of this housing. If those townhouses are $250 and our price in Spring Lakes neighborhood is over $3, our values will drop, regardless of how you do the appraisals, because it's in that existing neighborhood. There is nothing like this around that existing neighborhoods. We have all single-family houses. So again, I'm not against the Shepherd Center recouping their costs. I think this land would be perfect for the school and take the traffic off Piney Grove. That's the perfect solution for Shepherd to get out of it, live in Piney Grove, but to put 97 homes on that hill, it's just not a brilliant move. And we still have the 250 homes that are on the other side of Dobson Street, for everybody who remembers on the board, that we haven't seen the effect yet. So again, I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, Ms. Swain?
Becky Swaim again. I would just like to say, I know that the pipeline cannot be cut off permanently. It cannot be. So that leaves complete access to our property from the property we're talking about tonight. So it's a clean shot through there because it cannot be cut off. I know that. And our hayfield joins the end of the pipeline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. I need you to state your name, and I need you to slowly state your address so the town clerk can get it.
Billy Lawson, 106 Lingle Springs Road.
Okay.
A lot of young men in this part of town, they turn the corner up there, straight stretch in their cars, trucks, motorcycles. They hit 80 miles an hour by the time they go by Wooddale. We need some more law enforcement. I've called the Kernersville PD before. They do come and sit in the area across from Wooddale. Most of the time they come out and sit where the school bus lot is. You cannot see Linville Springs Road from the school bus lot. Also, our loop, according to the maps I've seen, the loop coming in from the east to Piney Grove Road is 185 feet right away. How will they be necked down to Linville Springs Road? Is that a long time in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for the rebuttal? Hey, wait a second. I think John Evans was first, then Sarah.
Thank you again. I only have one question. I've heard the cost to like $225. The first time we went to a meeting up at 4th of July Park with one of your groups, the gentleman told me they were going to be around $300,000. That's what he stated at that time. Now we hear $225. What is it? I mean, I don't really know. You know, that's, and with homeowners association, you know, we had one in Spring Lake, and it was pretty much mandatory when we first moved in. And I understand after 30 years, there's no, that's the length of a homeowners association. I don't know if that's still correct. But, you know, if you don't have a homeowners, and then who's going to take care of all the outside, you know, the vinyl or the roofing? And, you know, that's a concern that I have also. So, thank you.
Thank you, John. And Jason? Okay, Sarah?
Yes, exactly what Mr. Evans just said on the lack of transparency. What is the actual cost of these homes? This is the information that I provided was from that August 30th meeting, which, by the way, sign still on Linville Springs Road. It's been almost 6 months. You all haven't taken it down. So what is the cost with the HOA? What are these things that are going to be impacting our community and also the tax revenue of the town? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in rebuttal? All right, if not, we'll go to questions and discussion. So I'll declare this part of the public hearing closed. All right. So as to the house values, we're not allowed to consider that in making our decision. So as curious as everyone is as to what the selling price of these townhouses will be, that's not a factor that this board can consider. We need to look at the site plan, the conditions. Mr. Swisher, are there any of the comments and questions that were raised that you'd like to respond to? Or Mr. Powell? I saw y'all taking a few notes.
The only two I would like to respond to, I think Ms. Sabanis said that mobile homes could be built on this property if it was land use plan is changed to mixed residential. I think that is incorrect. I don't believe mobile homes will be allowed on the property. And I'm not sure, but if the HOA goes out, then I think she said if a roof needs replacing, the town will be responsible for that. And that is not the case.
Ms. Garner, if you could elaborate on either of those.
So the land use plan answers the question of what does this community want to be, and that what does that lot want to be when it grows up, more or less. So changing the land use plan does affect the vision of what we want in that area, but it is not the same as zoning. So if the land use plan answers the question of how do we want this to develop in the future, the zoning still has to match. So that's why the zoning case is before you tonight, because the zoning case is the zoning approval is the actual laws and ordinances that govern the development, where the property buildings, or where the buildings can be built, how many parking spaces are needed, how wide the right of way has to be, how many parking spaces have to be provided on site, and what size they are, so on and so forth. So if the land use plan were amended and the rezoning were denied, the land use plan would be changed to mixed residential, but a new rezoning would still have to be applied for anything to develop on the site. So in the sense of, does the land use plan reference mobile homes? Maybe it does. but the zoning would still have to match for that to become an actuality.
Okay, thank you. Was there any other point you'd want to address, Mr. Swisher? Chief Tilley, if you'd like to address the speeding and the enforcement actions and how people can help the police department in that regard.
Yes, ma'am. We frequently sit out on Pine Grove Road and Liberal Springs, and I can get those numbers. But if you have any issues, you can, there's a crime tip line as far as speeding and any other criminal activity. It would be very beneficial if you give us specific times of day, and whether it's the weekends or during the day. Unfortunately, that is a common problem through town. We can't cover every road at the same time, but we'll be glad to get out there and run as much radar as we possibly can. And we try to get voluntary compliance, but if we don't, we will write tickets. So just be prepared. When we start writing tickets, there's going to be tickets written.
And if you could address the police officers' vehicles being at Kernersville Middle School.
Yes, so that's why we sit on Pine Grove Road, because all the traffic, the speeders during the school hours, that's why we sit there, because obviously the safety of the children. So we sit there a lot.
Thank you. All right, as to road work and road projects, the road widening and the lanes right there at the intersection of Piney Grove and Linville, I've been following closely. They had a public meeting, I think it was in 2018 at the Wesleyan Church. The NCDOT invited the entire community to, and there's a published plan that the NCDOT has put on their website. The project name is U6003, if you want to search it that way. And also they have a map that you can look at a map and select the project. So that is not a Town of Kernersville project. It is a North Carolina Department of Transportation project there affecting the interchange. For this project, there are requirements of turn lanes in the vicinity of Wooddale. And Ms. Garner, if you could address that design.
Every rezoning that has an associated site plan goes through a development review process with town staff first, and then the plans are sent out to our partner agencies, which include the school system, City County Utilities Commission, and the North Carolina Department of Transportation. So North Carolina Department of Transportation in the local office in Winston, the district engineers have said that there needs to be turn lanes into the project to accommodate the traffic. So they do not have to have those designed at this point. They show the location because we know where they're going to go, but the exact plans and specifications would be worked out and approved by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. If this project were to be approved, it would go to the next phase, which is to prepare the civil construction drawings. And that's when NCDOT would be approving exactly where they're located, exactly how long they are, how much stacking is available for cars on both sides. And they would receive a driveway permit from the North Carolina Department of Transportation as well. So there would be more reviews with more specific details to come if this were to be approved.
And then the question about the intersection of Linville Springs and Dobson. In being proactive, the town joined with the Winston-Salem Business Inc., which is their Chamber of Commerce, in asking for state funding to study that intersection. And to the town, this board at 2 public meetings discussed these resolutions and this funding allocation from the state, and wanted to encourage the state to also include consideration of the road subsurface on Linville Springs Road and the lane widths in anticipation of increased demand from these neighborhoods, as you've mentioned, that haven't yet been built, and the traffic coming down Linville Springs Road and over onto this new road that is under construction that will go from Piney Grove to 150 and link up with Macy Grove Road. So that was this board being proactive. Regrettably, there weren't a lot of people in attendance at those meetings, but you can see the discussion if you look at some of our old meetings on the town's YouTube channel. So I think that answers most of the questions, if not all of them, that were asked. Does the board have any additional questions or discussion that you'd like to do? All right, so on this, we had the combined public hearing, but we would have 2 votes. So first, item 1A, the Kernersville Development Plan, zoning docket KDP 68. Do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion, Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion to deny this change in the Kernersville Development Plan.
Yeah, I have a motion by Alderman Barrow. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Alderman Gorham. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, the second is item B, which is the rezoning, zoning docket K759A1. Do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion, Madam Mayor. I'd make a motion to deny the rezoning in docket number K759-A1. A motion would be to deny that rezoning request.
Second.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Ms. Garner, in a motion to deny, does he need more specificity than that?
North Carolina state law requires that there is a statement of reasonableness and consistency. So if you could elaborate, that'd be great.
A statement of reasonableness and consistency. Is that correct? Okay. In making a motion, Madam Mayor, as to the reasonableness, I think that would go to the things that we've heard here tonight in terms of water problems, in terms of traffic problems, and infrastructure. As to, what was the other point?
Consistency with the comprehensive plan.
Do what?
Consistency with the comprehensive plan.
And of course, it is consistent with the comprehensive plan because we denied that motion to amend it. Is that not correct?
Okay, that's your motion.
Second.
That's your second. All those in favor of denial? It's unanimous. All right. So to answer any questions of when a zoning petition could be brought for this property in the future, do we have some guidance on that for the people in attendance?
Not off the top of my head, but we do require neighborhood meetings. So at a future point, when a developer wants to pursue rezoning, those within 200 feet would be notified of that neighborhood meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Garner. All right, we will then go on to, well, we've been meeting for a while. Perhaps we should take a quick recess. So we'll stand adjourned for the moment, or we'll stand in recess for the moment. I'll call this meeting back to order. Our next item is also a public hearing on a rezoning. Amanda Hodering, agent for Collybrook 2 LLC, requesting a single-phase conditional use rezoning from RM18C, which is residential multifamily conditional and general office conditional, to RM18C and general office conditional for properties located to the north and south of Little John Road and west of Macy Grove Road, containing 56.41 plus or minus acres, and being all of the pins as indicated on the agenda and on the screen. This case is zoning docket K803A1 in consideration of an ordinance rezoning said property. This is item 1C on the agenda. We'll begin with a presentation by Catherine Garner, our Community Development Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next rezoning case is K803.A1. It is a single and two-phase rezoning. You may recall that this came before you last year, year before last, 2 years ago. Time flies. And they were looking to split the rezoning from the RM conditional and the GO conditional, the general office conditional, based on the location of a road that would be extended. When they got into some additional engineering work, the road alignment needed to change, which threw off where the zoning was. If you based it on the road center line and the road center line changes, then things need to be adjusted. So that's the point of this rezoning tonight, is to readjust to that new center line. They are also proposing to do the residential multifamily section as a single phase. So you'll see the outline or the layout of those multifamily apartment buildings. So it is still a request from residential multifamily conditional and general office conditional to residential multifamily conditional and general office conditional. That part is not changing. The total acreage is also not changing. So the applicant has proposed the following uses. So in the RM18C, which is the single phase, they're proposing residential building, multifamily, and life care community. And then with general office conditional, these are the same uses that were originally approved as part of the original two-phase rezoning. So arts and crafts studio, banking and financial services, funeral home, health services, miscellaneous, medical and surgical offices, non-store retailer, offices miscellaneous, offices professional, business services A, personal services, adult daycare center, drop-in childcare, sick children childcare, institution childcare, child daycare center, government offices, hospice and palliative care, hospital or health center, institutional vocational training, public library, museum or art gallery, neighborhood organization office, nursing care institution, police or fire station, and post office. Anything on the GO side would require a final development plan to go before the planning board for review as a two-phase rezoning. Current zoning is RM18C and general office C. Adjacent zoning districts include limited industrial, residential single family 20, medical business park, and general industrial in the surrounding areas. So the site plan shows the single-phase portion being located to the northern half of the property on that side of the Deep Fork Road. So it's 14 multifamily and 2 life care community buildings. 516 units are being proposed across the 2 projects. This is less than the number of units that were originally proposed as the max cap in that rezoning 2 years ago. So amenities are provided on the multifamily side and for the life care center in the courtyard area of the life care center, which is right here along the road. And then for the multifamily, it would be on the eastern side. So they've got amenities provided for both facilities. The general office conditional areas have been left with little detail as they're being considered as part of the 2-phase rezoning, and that does require the final development plan prior to further development. So Deep Fork Road, you can see how it changed. The after is on the left side of your screen, and it's more of a straight shot road as opposed to the original plan that you saw 2 years ago, which has a bigger curve to it. There is a condition in the original and this proposal tonight that would require them to maintain access to Little John Road at all times, because there are homes and property owners on Little John Road, but Little John would be realigned as part of the previous project, but also the current project. The multifamily and life care community development will build Deep Fork Road down to their last entrance point, and dedicated turn lanes will be installed at all access points for the developments north and south of Deep Fork Road, aside from Little John Road. And then, as I mentioned, the condition that will require Little John Road to remain open during construction to allow continued access to existing residential homes. This road has had extensive review with the developer's engineer and the North Carolina Department of Transportation engineers and the town of Kernersville engineer. So there's been a lot of thought and care put into the layout of this road and where those turn lanes and access points would be. With your last rezoning, we did the highway corridor overlay on Deep Fork Road. So the general office and RM18C properties will be subject to the highway corridor overlay standards and requirements due to their frontage on either Macy Grove Road or the Deep Fork Road. Highway corridor overlay regulates building design and materials with the exception of the RM18C parcel and the site layout requirements. In every overlay district, the developer has the opportunity to follow the overlay district or the central Kernersville overlay, which is our most restrictive. And so they have proposed to follow the central Kernersville overlay standards for building design for those residential multifamily buildings. So the elevations provided meet the requirements of the central Kernersville overlay as required and previously approved in this case. So this is just showing you what those buildings would look like. The land use plan was set when we did the rezoning 2 years ago. It is business support, which is intended to accommodate a wider variety of office, corporate park, warehouse, flex space, light industrial, retail, hotel, and related uses. It sets standards for development, including limited screened outdoor storage and loading areas, enhanced front facades, and unified landscaping, lighting, and signage. And then high-density residential on the northern half of the property is defined as residential land use is the primary use that provides rental housing. Kernersville is fortunate that it has a large number of apartments and one of the lowest average rental costs in the triad. So the proposed uses are still in conformance with the land use plan as shown. This was heard at the January Planning Board meeting, and both Planning Board and staff recommended to move to amend the Unified Development Ordinance of the town by rezoning the property in case K803A1 from RM18C and GOC to RM18C and GOC, finding the rezoning is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, the Kernersville Development Plan, and being both reasonable and in the public interest because of the following. Petitioners requested the two-phase conditional to allow specific uses to be considered to ameliorate impacts to adjoining properties and has included elevations and site plans to be adopted regarding the single-phase rezoning along the area north of Deep Fork Road and west of Macy Grove. The proposed right-of-way dedication will allow the extension of the Kernersville Loop Road, Shields Road corridor as proposed in the thoroughfare and street plan. And the proposal is consistent with the land use plan and are appropriate uses in the high-density residential and business support use classifications. Planning Board and staff also recommend approval of the site plan and the conditions as presented in the staff report. And this was the vote from the January Planning Board meeting, with those members voting in favor, those against, and a member absent. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does the board have any questions at this time? All right, this is a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open. Amanda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. It's nice to see you again this evening. Appreciate your time on all the matters this evening, and appreciate the opportunity to be heard on this. We were privileged and proud to receive your unanimous support on this matter 2 years ago when we did the initial rezoning. So it is my hope that tonight you'll see this as a success story and a continuation of that project that you gave your support to 2 years ago, continuing on and progressing down the path and coming before you now with more detail as we've learned more about the road, and of course progressing to the final development plan stage on that northern portion, just as your ordinance contemplates. So we're excited to have made these steps and to be here before you.
Okay, and if you could give your address. So
I'm
keep
sorry, thank you.
going to that.
Amanda Hodiern, 804 Green Valley Road, Suite 200, over in Greensboro.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant and at this time now property owner. So that's another one of those important progression steps that we've made in the meantime. My client, Collybrook 2 LLC, is a title holding entity of Blue Ridge Companies, and they do now own this property. So as Ms. Garner has laid out, the nature of this request, if we could go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The nature of this request is, again, one of further detail and knowing more now than we knew then. But for that change in the road that Ms. Garner pointed out to you, we would just be progressing as a final development plan. But because of that bump in the road being smoothed out, which I think is a good thing, a nice, more straight road, that changed our acreages. And so because of your ordinance being specific to each acreage being in a certain district, we had to come get that right so that we would now have residential on the north side of the road and the general office on the south side of the road, just as was contemplated and approved by you 2 years ago. So that's the reason for the request. The zoning approval that was obtained in October of 22 is still the same. We're not asking for any changes. The land use and proposed project are not changing. This is simply a continuation of that work that was done. So when we leave here tonight, regardless of what happens, the RM18C zoning and the GOC zoning will still be in place. The proposed land use list that you saw is exactly the same as it was. The intensities are exactly the same. The residential density actually went down because we know more now. So I hope that these are all positive progressions. The technical adjustment, as we've said, is the reason for the technical zoning request that's before you tonight. We talked about that. Ms. Garner showed it to you graphically. We'll look at it again. The approved zoning allowed for up to 688 residential units. Now that we've done engineering and we know more, we're only asking for 516. So that's actually gone down. We also have with us in our more useful information 2 years down the road, a traffic study now. So we have the benefit of that as well, that the DRC committee, the Development Review Committee, had the benefit of as well as we went through extensive review, to use Ms. Garner's terminology, on this road and figured out how to get it exactly right. I have with me tonight from Davenport Engineering, Ms. Erin Genoa, who will speak to you about that specifically. If we could go to the next slide, please. So just to remind you, our use and location here are hand in hand. This property is right in the middle of a lot of exciting things that you all have going on in Kernersville, with everything happening on the Kernersville Medical Parkway, all of the industrial happening to the north, along north of Business 40 and along Macy Grove Road here. This was a perfect spot to put in not only some higher density residential, you've also got the infrastructure in place here to serve it, but also some supporting uses for all those folks that work here and who will live in the area. So that, again, won't change. If we could go to the next slide. Our land use pattern considerations, again, nothing changing here, but just to remind you, this zoning established a nice step down, or the land use change also established a nice step down from all that industrial and non-residential zoning that you see into that yellow residential. So you have more of a feathering of uses. If we could go to the next slide, please. Our consistency considerations, Ms. Garner did a nice job with this, so we don't need to spend too much time on it, but this has given you exactly what your land use plan asks for here: business support and the high density residential for the reasons I just mentioned. Next slide. So again, Ms. Garner showed you this. This was our 2022 approved zoning plan. Again, remember at that time it was just a zoning plan, not a final development plan. So it is less detailed, but the main thing to notice here is the road. It's got that big bump in it in the middle. And if we jump to today, now we see the road is nice and straightened out, and then we also have the added detail of the final development plan for the residential portion to the north, which of course went through multiple reviews with your Development Review Committee, and I believe I can say we're all happy with it now. If we could go to the next slide, please. These were the representative elevations that we showed you 2 years ago. At that time, elevations weren't required with it being a two-phase zoning, but we did want to give you a flavor of our vision. And so we're pleased to be able to say that now when we look at our submitted elevations, if we can go to the next slide, you'll note that they're right in keeping with what we said we were going to do here. So these are the actual architectural elevations for those visuals that you saw 2 years ago. And again, as Ms. Garner stated, this complies with not only the Highway Corridor Overlay District that we established for the road extension 2 years ago, but it also adheres to your stricter Central Kernersville development standards as we committed to then, because again, we wanted that continuity of those high standards you've set for yourself here in Kernersville along your major thoroughfares. If we could go to the next slide, please. We did do some neighborhood outreach, even though we've been working on this for a while and been to public hearings before. We went through the ordinance prescribed process again. That's the letter that went out back in June. And we invited everyone to attend a neighborhood meeting on Zoom. That went out to about 30 neighbors per your mailing radius in your ordinance. We had 3 folks attend and participate in that Zoom meeting. And the discussion really just centered around our traffic study, how those improvements would look, what the site layout was going to be, and what the tenant demographics would be specifically, since we were doing some age targeting here with the life care community. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Actually, I'll let Aaron talk about this one. This just goes into detail as to those NCDOT required traffic improvements. But before I hand it over to Aaron, I'll just lift up and highlight again in summary. We're pleased to be here. We've been working hard on this for the last 2 years. We hope that you'll agree that this is a continuation of the vision that you trusted us with at that time. And we're pleased to be one step closer. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, if you could state your name and address and also spell your name, since we don't have a written card from you.
Sure. Excuse me. My name is Erin Govea. It's ERINGOVEA. And the address is 4600 Marriott Drive in Raleigh. So I was going to take just a few minutes to walk you through the TIA process, the traffic impact analysis, and how we do the study, and then go over the improvements that you can see on the screen here. So Davenport was retained by Blue Ridge Companies and to look at the potential traffic impacts of the Macy Grove development. And we looked at that in conjunction with NCDOT and Kernersville. The first step of the TIA is really to go over the scoping, and we do that with those reviewing agencies. We met with Kernersville, we met with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and discussed and agreed upon the actual study intersections, the study area, and the phasing and the future build years that we're going to look at. So you can see that the study intersection on the screen was Macy Grove and what's kind of becoming Deep Fork Road / Little John, and then all of the access points for the development. And this is a 2-phase study. So we looked at existing, we took counts in 2023 when we started the study, when school was in session on a nice day, and performed a field visit. And then we took an approved growth rate that was discussed with NCDOT and agreed upon of 4.8%. So that's actually pretty high for North Carolina areas, where we're looking at the amount of traffic that could be on the road as a background condition. So other developments that might be in the area, just general growth in the area, and we apply that to the traffic that we counted in 2023. So we apply that up to our phase 1 build year of 2025. And then we look at the amount of traffic that we think this development is going to generate. We use standard national and state trip generation methodology to estimate that amount of traffic that could be developed or there could be generated by this development, and then apply that to the roadways. And looking at that data, we analyze it to determine the level of service or how well we think the traffic is going to operate on the roadways. The results of the TIA show that the study intersections are expected to operate at an acceptable level of service with the recommended improvements. So for 2025, phase 1, that would be your multifamily residential and then the life care facilities. With those residential units, all of the turn lanes that you see on the screen are recommended. So at each of the driveways, there's turn lanes, and then on Macy Grove, turning northbound left, and then a southbound right, there are turn lanes that are recommended. You can also see that there's a signal indication at that intersection. Once the commercial and office use goes in, that amount of traffic will generate enough trips on the roadway that it is likely that a traffic signal will be warranted. So in conjunction with NCDOT, the development will work with NCDOT so that once that traffic level is to the point where a signal is warranted, it could be installed. So that is also shown as a recommended improvement. So I guess in summary, with the recommended improvements, the traffic should be, with the recommended improvements in place, the traffic analysis does not show it shows that there's no detrimental effect to the capacity and mobility in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Seeing none, we'll hear from the opponents. Ms. Sechrist?
Yes, my name is Kathy Sechrist. I live at 420 Idlebrook. I live right off Macy Grove. I'm listening to all these things, all the traffic. Has anybody ever been out there at 7:30 in the morning on Macy Grove? Probably not. You would not believe how much traffic is out there and how much speeding goes on that road. And we have called, and because we have to deal with the sheriff's office, because we were told that the town of Kernersville police cannot do anything about the speeders on Macy Grove. I mean, I understand this project's going to go ahead, but why can we not do the roads first before you start building things so that we don't have building after the fact? Because the traffic is just getting worse. And then with Piedmont Commerce getting ready to open, we have more trucks. I get run off the road just about every week right there at where Little John Road is, right there in the curve, because these big trucks are flying down the road. I have speed dial for 4 or 5 different dump truck companies to talk to them about their guys, because they come down from in front of the hospital, which they're not supposed to, come flying down Macy Grove to go out to 40 or Business 40 or Salem Parkway. But when they finish Macy Grove all the way through, it's going to even be a bigger speedway. And so the people who live on Macy Grove, there's a lot of elderly people, get just about knocked down to go out to get their mail out of their mailbox. Now we've got all this extra traffic with the hospital. We got the Veterans Center now. We got the VA. We got a nursing home. We've got a lot of traffic, and plus the apartments that over there at 40 that were built. We know this is all going to be built, but how about let's do the roads first and then build the stuff? I mean, let's help us out a little bit. I mean, it's getting ridiculous that you take your life in your hand. And I've been fighting with DOT for 7 years on the speed limit on Macy Grove. It's 45. That's absolutely absurd. And basically what they told me was, unless somebody dies on that road, they're not going to lower it. So that's my whole complaint is, that's fine. You're going to build whatever you want to build, and that's going to happen. But do the roads first. Don't start building and then do the roads. No, build the roads first. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Do you have a rebuttal?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, not a rebuttal, but yes, we are going to do the roads first. So the traffic study and the way the driveway permitting process actually works, everything that Aaron described, except for the traffic signal, because we have to wait for the warrants to be tripped, which we know won't happen without the commercial. But all the turn lanes, the Deep Fork Road that you saw, which in and of itself is a road improvement, it's on your thoroughfare plan, all of that goes in before any of the residential will ever be vertical or have a single resident in it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have anything follow-up to say, Kathy?
That's fine. It's going to get done. But my whole thing is the amount of construction traffic that's going to be on Macy Grove. We need to have it go from Piedmont Commerce Road to industrial, not commerce toward Kernersville Parkway. So I don't know who has to help us with that we got to keep the construction traffic going that way and not back toward the hospital, because this is where all the older people live down Macy Grove from Little John to Kernersville Parkway, and they walk out to get their mail, and you've got these big dump trucks, 18-wheelers coming flying by, and they about get knocked down. That's not fair to them. You know, and why does DOT have to basically tell me somebody has to die before they'll do something about it? We need the speed limit lowered, which I don't know if y'all can do that or get somebody to do it, but we need to fix it so that the trucks go from Piedmont Commerce to industrial, not Piedmont Commerce to the hospital, to Kernersville Parkway.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Mr. Swisher, I know you've worked on the routing of traffic in that area. With there was a road the town put a fence across or a gate across. Is there any comments you have relating to the comments that were made?
I think the road that we put a gate across may have been Little John, to stop the traffic from going up and down Little John. The speaker's correct. I mean, the speed limit on the road is DOT road. So the speed limit, lowering the speed limit is up to DOT, and she's correct in what she says. DOT is sometimes not real proactive in lowering the speed limits. We have talked to DOT before about Macy Grove Road. They also told us they would not lower the speed limit. They said it's designed to carry traffic at 45 miles per hour. So that's what they intend to leave the speed limit at. In fact, I think they said one time something about increasing the speed limit, which makes no sense to me, but it is 45 miles an hour. It's a DOT road. I can tell you that previous conversations, DOT has indicated that the road is nowhere near capacity as far as traffic is concerned, so they don't see any reason right now necessarily to do any road improvements. I think the developer, as they mentioned, will have to do some turn lanes and so forth, which will help with their project right there. We have worked in the past to keep the trucks from going down, as the speaker mentioned, down Medical Parkway instead of Industrial Park. I think it's Industrial Park, South Park, whatever it might be. We can go back out. I think Amazon pretty much uses Industrial Park, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, Amazon.
But the problem is the signs that are up on Kernersville Parkway from all 66 are about this big to say no trucks.
Yeah.
We need a sign that says, because some of these guys cannot see that.
Yeah, and we can look at increasing the signs. We've worked with the trucking companies they're mainly the trucking companies coming off of Old Greensboro Road. Got Amazon, Old Dominion, those folks. We've worked with them to get them to use Industrial Park Drive. The dump trucks that are going up and down through there with development that's going on, I know they can ensure that their folks go down Industrial Park over to the site. But the other dump trucks that may go up and down through there, a lot of them were probably coming from the hospital where they were doing the construction at the hospital. They're going to use it because they're at that point, they're not considered a through truck. They're going to the hospital. So we can monitor it to see if there's some dump trucks from a construction site nearby that's using Medical Parkway when they should not be. But we do monitor it. The police department monitors it from time to time to make sure that the other trucks in the area are using Industrial Park. So we'll continue to do that.
It's a good point to bring up the speed limit on Macy Grove as the traffic from this just traffic increases along Macy Grove. That may change.
Well, that's the whole thing. It has increased over the years so much because the apartments that are built right there at 40, all those, I mean, there were 500 apartments or 600 apartments out there. You had that traffic come in the hospital, you have the VA, now you have the veterans center is there. You got all this increased traffic, and they keep saying it's not that much traffic. But yeah, they do a count usually during the summer months on weekends. That doesn't get it.
Well, it is an NCDOT road, so the NCDOT controls that, and the town manager's indicated it's a recent conversation about the speed limit, but that is something, as time goes by, the board could request the DOT to reconsider that.
That's where the town also has to ask FEMA bumpers, where they're letting their trucks come out.
Well, he's addressed that already.
They have to turn right, not left. The problem with the dump trucks we had dealing with was during the construction over there with the FEMA Commerce.
Okay. We'll move on to considering this particular situation now. Right. Is there, all right. The public hearing's closed. Is there any questions?
Madam Mayor, I just have a comment. The type of uses that are allowed, permissible uses, life care uses, I believe is the terminology, seems to me to be perfect for the surrounding, particularly the medical uses that are going on and the kind of clientele that the project will attract. So I think it's a great, we've used the term transitional, but I think it's a great transition from the town's intended uses that are medically related for those to be the uses that will be permitted under this.
I got a question from Amanda Hodery. Is that how you say it? Hodier, okay. I got a question about the senior section of this thing.
Yes, sir.
That's very nice. I like that. I think Kernersville needs that. But my question would center around two things. Number one, these are 3-story buildings. Do you have elevators in them?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. And the other thing would be security. I know that the various places we have around town, there's usually one way in, one way out when you got a bunch of old folks living together. And that creates a more secure situation, I would think. What have y'all done considering that? Because old folks, they're more vulnerable than everyone else. And I just wondered what y'all had done.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'm going to let my client, Tom Flanagan, since it's more of an operational item, answer that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a Tom Flanagan, Blue Ridge Companies. That's a great question. What we like to do typically in a age targeted or life care facility would to control trip traffic, as you stated. However, on this particular project, for life safety concerns, we have created a point or two of connectivity to the market rate. So we will try and generate traffic through the main entry point off of Deep Fork Road. And that's really where most of the traffic will be coming from.
Okay, I noticed that you had a pool in the clubhouse, I would suppose, for the seniors, and then a whole nother pool and all.
We will keep the two facilities, will not have any exchange of residents and using the amenities areas. They'll be to their own.
Good deal. I like it. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion, or do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the single-phase conditional use rezoning requested in item paragraph C on the agenda for zoning docket K 803A1.
Would you like it to do that in, with the motion and the recommendation for rezoning motion and site plan and conditions as presented by staff?
Yes, ma'am, I will do that.
Okay, and that is located on page 6 of the report. And I think it is on the screen at the moment. Okay, is there a second?
I second.
I have 2 seconds. Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Bill Apple and a second by Alderman Penix. All those in favor? All those opposed? I have Mr. Barrow in opposition. It passes 4-1. When do you think you'll get started?
We are moving in the right direction now.
Okay.
So the design is taking a long, the world has slowed down, everything. We are targeting. We plan for a 25 start. Across the level.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, the next item is item D. It's a public hearing on a rezoning. Jill Eversole, agent for BME Limited, for a general use or a general rezoning from highway business special to highway business for property located at 745 Cinema Court, containing 2.89 plus or minus acres and being all of the PIN numbers listed on the agenda. And that is zoning docket K 813. Ms. Garner?
Madam Mayor, our final rezoning case tonight is case K 813. It's a general rezoning compared to the two conditional rezonings you saw previously. The petitioner tonight is Jill Eversole. She's the agent for the owner. Owner is Jane Page of BME Limited. The request is to go from highway business special to highway business and remove the special use that's been in place on the site for many years. All highway business uses would apply to the site that's shown in red. It is currently developed and it is approximately 2.89 acres. The current zoning is highway business special, the requested zoning being highway business. There's a variety of zoning districts in the area. It looks a little bit like a patchwork quilt, but we've got residential single family special, both highway business special and highway business, and residential multifamily special and residential single family quadruplex. So it really spans the gamut on what the zoning is in the immediate vicinity. The land use plan is currently designated as commercial. Land use plan defines the commercial designation as having been established to provide for high traffic commercial areas. They're located in 3 separate areas and limited in size to prevent them from overburdening the capacity of the roads and distracting from Kernersville's small town atmosphere. So you'll see that it's primarily focused along Main Street and Nelson Street there, but does include all of the properties that were previously developed in this commercial subdivision. The commercial designation does support the highway business zoning district. It was a concern of the applicants and the property owner that if they rezoned from highway business special to highway business, that removing the overlay would not negatively impact any of the existing businesses. It does not. We did a comparison of the highway business zoning and what uses are approved, and then those that are approved in their previous special use permit. So it does not remove anybody who is currently existing under that special use zoning district. It would allow approximately 70 additional uses, and that's before we examine use conditions. Several uses have specific conditions related to that type of use and distance requirements from other things and so on and so forth. So those may preclude other uses from being established, but with a general rezoning, all highway business uses must be considered as part of that general rezoning. Staff's analysis is that the proposed highway business zoning district and commercial designation will allow for the creation of a high-intensity commercial use while still limiting possible nuisances through those use conditions and the location of the existing building. And it allows for congruence with the land use designation in harmony with surrounding commercial uses and residential uses. Removal of the special use ordinance to the UDO regulation can help encourage redevelopment of the North Main corridor. And UDO standards will provide for setbacks and buffering of adjacent properties to further protect those adjacent residential properties if the site were to be redeveloped. This was heard at the January Planning Board meeting. Planning Board and staff recommend approval of the rezoning request and amending the zoning ordinance by rezoning the property in case K813 from highway business special to highway business, finding it's consistent with the town's comprehensive plan and is both reasonable and in the public interest because the request to rezone the highway business zoning is consistent with the land use plan. And the change in uses allowed under the existing special zoning to those allowed in highway business by right provides a redevelopment opportunity for an existing building within a declining corridor. And it was recommended for approval by Planning Board unanimously.
Okay, this is a public hearing. The public hearing is open. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? If you could give your name and address for us.
Yeah, so I'm Jill Eversole, that's listed up here. It's 126 Colts Gate Drive here in Kernersville. Pretty much what she has said, we were looking mostly to be able to rezone because we've been there for about 14 years in this building. As we've grown and expanded, we've started trying to look for other opportunities that even our current business can do. That would require either extended hours or just different opportunities with growth. It was really important to us not to interfere with any of our neighbors that are in the building with us. So that was a big thing. And once we looked through everything, it would not interfere with any of the other tenants that are with us. When we moved in, the surrounding neighbors were, pleased with it because it's a family-friendly business. It doesn't have evening, weekend, late hours, anything like that. So it kind of coincides with the workday. And then we did a neighborhood meeting and I think invited about 57. We didn't have any other neighbors show up except for our current business. So no one opposed. And it, like we said, it would not change anything that's in the building. It would just give us more opportunity to grow our current business. So I think that's it. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone here in opposition? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Is there discussion, questions, or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the K813 to amend the zoning ordinances to rezone the property from K813 from HBS to HB. And I'd make that motion.
Second.
And is that in line with the proposed motion and?
It's both reasonable and in the public interest in terms of justification.
As recommended by staff?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, is that your second, Chris? Yes. Okay, I've got a motion by Alderman Apple, second by Alderman Thompson, or Mayor Pro Tem Thompson. All in favor? It's unanimous. And Jill, congratulations. I hope your business continues to succeed. It's nice to have a Kernersville resident running a Kernersville business. So thank you for being involved in the community in many ways. All right. Is there anything else we need to do on this one, Ms. Garner? All right. So we are going to move now from the public hearings to the public session. The next item on our agenda is speakers from the floor. Is there anyone who'd like to address the Board of Aldermen on a topic that is not otherwise covered on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we have item 2B, consideration of a letter of interest to explore entering into an agreement with USA BMX to build a proposed BMX facility.
Madam Mayor and Board, I talked about this some at the last meeting, and you have in your packet a memo from myself to you all, and then the letter of interest about a proposed BMX facility within the Ivy Redmond Sports Complex. It's what this is just what it says. It's a letter of interest. It binds the town in no way, shape, or form. Ernie has been working with BMX or USA BMX to look at the possibility of locating a facility at Ivy Redmond. As you all know, we have some land out there. We have some land that we think would be suitable for it, but I'm not an expert in it. I don't think Ernie is either. So with this letter of interest, is what it will do is the folks from USA BMX will come out. They'll look at the site, the facilities. They'll also do a study of the area and the market to really say, hey, yes, it will support one. No, it won't support one. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, this is not just a facility for the Kernersville residents. This facility will attract national competitions. We'll host a national regional qualifier as well as the national championships. To give you an idea of what this does, there's a similar facility in Rock Hill, South Carolina that some of you may have seen. They have the national championships there, the USA championships. I think they're a week long. It generates about $9 million in tourism dollars for the community there. And Rock Hill's not much larger than Kernersville. So it's a great facility, brings in the folks. But with that said, it will be used by town residents as well. Their facility is open to the public certain days of the week, and it'll be just like the facilities we have out at Ivy Redmond. As I mentioned last week, we have facilities there that are open to town citizens to use, but not every day, not all day, every day, certainly. Baseball, softball fields, they're not open for just general play. Neither are the soccer fields. So this will fall much in line with that. So that's all I have on it. I think Ernie probably has some more information. He's more familiar with it than I am, but either one of us be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Pages, go ahead.
Trying to figure out how to put this microphone.
You might have to just hold it.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. All right.
You sound really clear, if that's helpful.
Thank you. So, Curtis is correct. What the letter of intent or interest does, it keys BMX to come in and do a feasibility study. They look at regional picture, local picture, in terms of see whether or not there's market, draw, the location, the layout, and a cost estimate if we want to move forward on what a facility would look like. There's a difference between BMX bike, USA BMX facilities, and what you have is, say, in Tanglewood. Tanglewood has a BMX bike facility, but is not supported by USA BMX because it was built based on volunteer labor and it's operated by volunteers, so it doesn't meet the standard to host regional, state, or national competition. So with BMX, should they come in and say, yes, you have a perfect location, we you know, if you want to proceed, you could. If we do decide to build one, what happens is they support it with a large regional state championship every year and a national qualifier, national championship every other year. And then they also come in with a program for local riders to get local kids interested. So beginner courses, intermediate courses, mentorship, local meets, local races, heat races, those type of things every Friday night, every week. And it gets the local kids interested off their phones, away from video games, and doing individual sports. Plus they also do STEM programming as well, because there's a mathematical, scientific way to get the run on the course to make your time better and that type of thing. So that's the entire kind of gist of what we learned when we went down to Rock Hill and how the whole process takes place. So if we're interested, we have to send this letter of interest, say we're interested to explore, and that'll trigger them to come out and spend the time and say, hey, here's the market, here's your draw. You either meet or you don't meet. And if you decide to meet, then the next step will come to us when we, they give us a cost estimate and say, yeah, we're interested. Then when we gather our funds together and say notice to proceed, and then they'll come out and start really doing it. So that's kind of how the whole process works.
All right, are there any questions?
I got a question. Do they ever turn anybody down?
They do. When we went down to Rock Hill, there's 4 other cities. There was one city that was pretty close to Rock Hill, and they told them pretty much we will do a local look at a local course, but nothing to this caliber, because then you're diminishing the draw.
And so, saying we went forward with this thing, they wouldn't put one in Greensboro.
No.
They wouldn't allow
They would not. The caliber of what we're talking about is a supercross, is a national caliber type of course. They wouldn't put one in Greensboro. And if it's not supported by USA BMX, they won't push any competition towards those courses.
Another question. You do that thing every year asking people in Kernersville what they want. And of course, they always say they want pools, first thing they always say.
Correct.
Where does BMX come in on that list?
The last time I looked, we had, that was 2012, and we had a 4.95% of our register, who sent information identified a BMX. By comparison, 6% wanted pickleball. So that kind of gives, so you see where pickleball is now.
How many people wanted a pool?
In 2012, it was a number 2 behind walking. And then when we did Pope, it was number 1. And we did 2009 or 2017 with needs of your survey your senses, came in number 1. I think ranking right now, we have our current master plan is out. We're collecting information, and is up there as well again.
Ernie, got a question for you. Yeah. Say, for example, if we go through with this and they find out this Kernersville is a perfect place to have this, right? What type of programs would be available for kids who are not financially able to maybe get involved with the sports such as this right here, like marginalized kids and stuff? Yeah.
We asked that question. USA BMX has a scholarship available for those kids that are facing financial hardships. They provide them a beginner bike and get them kind of introduced to the sport. Right. In conjunction with that, we have our own scholarship available through the Declan Donahue Foundation to get kids involved with programs. Right now, it's kind of been focused on summer camp because that's where we get the most requests.
Right.
But we have enough funds to do other sports, so the kids that would like to do things and they can't afford it can apply it down to that foundation and get funding.
I mean, are we going to be kind of like intentional about making sure that we get the word out to certain communities that normally don't get an opportunity to be involved in activities such as this, is what I'm concerned about.
Yes, definitely. Now, our whole intent behind this, besides doing the sports tourism issue, is to get kids involved. Those kids that can't afford to do sports, or their talent levels kind of exclude them from being on an all-star on a basketball team or baseball, to come out and learn an individual lifelong sport. So we're kind of being intentional with that as well.
Any further questions or comments?
Ernie, I like and Curtis, I like the fact that you're kind of looking outside the box with something that every neighborhood and every community doesn't have, especially that could have the economic impact that this does. And, we want to have the national meets and all that, but and that's certainly right up there in terms of why you want to do this, but the economic impact, everybody benefits from that. So I'm glad you're kind of looking at some non-traditional activities like you are.
Appreciate it. And just to back that up, to back up your comment, I had a chance to this past week look at a preliminary concept that we're looking for Ivy as a sports complex. And of course, we have soccer fields and some baseball fields, but is moving more towards out of the side of the box, new things, sand volleyball, pickleball, the BMX. Those are the type of things we're looking to do out there to get more unique uses at the park.
Need a motion for this?
Yes.
Okay, I motion to approve the MX letter of interest.
Second.
Got a motion for approval by Mayor Pro Tem Thompson, second by Alderman Gorham. All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, we are on to item C, which is the consideration of an ordinance for budget amendment 5 for fiscal year 23-24. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor and Board, you have in your packet the budget amendment. There is not a tremendous amount in it, but there are some high dollar projects in it that I will explain. You will see in item number 2 under general fund expenditures, there are 3 engineering department projects in there. Whit Road for $650,000, North Point Water Extension for $710,000, and the professional services for the design of West Mountain Street sidewalk for $700,000. We have revenue to offset all 3 of those, with the exception of our 20% match on the design of the West Mountain Street sidewalk. So $140,000 of that. We had it in last year's budget. We didn't carry it forward, so basically it went back into the general fund. We're now reappropriating that. The other 2, the Whit Road and the North Point Water Extension, we will receive reimbursement for those. One of those will come from DOT, and the other one will come from city county utilities out of our water sewer reserve fund. The other, really only other increases, we had an increase for outside legal fees. And then we've had some of the projects that the board approved in this year's budget, fiscal year 23-24. When we put them out to bid the final time, they were a little bit more than what we put in the budget. One of those being the paving of some of the streets. It went up a little bit with increase in asphalt. And I think that is all that is in the budget reflected in there. So in the end, we will have a decrease in the fund balance appropriation of $217,000. Actually, it is an increase in the fund balance appropriation of $217,000. That covers the $140,000 our match for Mountain Street sidewalk, and then the $77,000 for outside legal fees. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have associated with any of those.
Thank you, Curtis, for your hard work, and thank you, Franz, for your hard work and that of your staff. All right, do I have any questions, or do I have a motion to approve it? Got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Thompson, second by Alderman Barrow. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, item D, discussion and consideration of scope of work subgrants and annual budget for $2.45 million in state grant funding. Mr. Swisher?
Yes, ma'am. This is the money that Representative Lambeth and Senator Crowley got the town of Kernersville in the 23-24 budget. As the mayor mentioned, it is for $2,450,000. It was pretty well stipulated how they would like to see us spend that money when they awarded it to us. $1.8 million of that is for land purchase out at Ivy Redmond Park. $400,000 of it is for a greenhouse at Paul J. Senior Botanical Garden. And then $250,000 of that is for pass-through, will come to us, and then it is to be awarded to the Kerner's Folly Foundation for the Visitor Center. So we have to send in the scope of work. It has to be approved by this board. They will then send back the contract for final approval. If something happens and one of these projects doesn't work out, we can go back to them and ask to change the project. We've done that in the past, but it does have to be approved by the state within the parameters of what the money was awarded for.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the scope of work?
So
moved.
Okay, I've got a motion by Alderman Gorham, second by Mayor Pro Tem Thompson. All in favor? It's unanimous. Curtis, is this one you sign or one I sign?
Either one. I've signed the last few that we've sent in, but
It doesn't indicate who.
yeah.
If it's printed name signs it.
Yeah, and actually, I think it may be submitted online, so it may just be a electronic signature.
Okay. All right, the next item is a consent agenda. This one is particularly uninteresting to the general public because it is all minutes for closed sessions. So if the board has read your minutes and has no changes, then you can vote for this. If you have any edits, changes, whatever, something that's needs to be corrected in the closed session minutes, we'll have to have a closed session in order to correct it. All right. So these matters are considered to be routine by the Board of Aldermen and will be enacted with one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member, in this case, so requests, in which event the matter will be removed and considered under the following item. A is minutes from the October 3rd closed session. B, November 8 closed session. C, November 14 closed session. D, November 29 closed session. And E, December 12 closed session. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved, Madam Mayor. Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Apple, second by Alderman Gorham. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, town manager's report. We have item 5A. I do have someone signed up to speak for that, but if you'd like to go ahead and start.
Yes, Madam Mayor, as you all are aware, the board voted several months ago for the demolition of the house located at 511 Club Road. Following that, the town took bids on that demolition. The board then awarded the contract for demolition. We have not signed the contract, so it's technically not been awarded. I received a call from the executor of Miss Fink's estate, her sister, and she has an individual that wishes to purchase the house. So in order to do that, the individual would like to purchase the house and remodel it, and then have his granddaughter, or is actually his daughter and his grandson, live in the house. I told her that it would take a vote of the board to delay the demolition of the house. So staff is fine with that. I recommend delaying the demolition. We do not recommend removing the order for demolition. Simply delaying the demolition. You can set some parameters around when work has to start and so forth to the new buyer. But if someone buys it and they don't start cleaning it up and get it cleaned up within a reasonable amount of time, then I think it's fair for the board to go in and remove the delay and proceed forward with the demolition. Only thing will be the cost of it probably go up. We might have to rebid it depending on how long it is, but I don't see that being an issue. So be glad to answer any questions that you may have regarding that, the process around how we got to the point we're at now.
So we'd like to have some recommendations as to the timeframes, Mr. Swisher, because I see none in this memo.
Yeah, I have a letter here from Mr. Fry, who I'm anticipating is the one that would be purchasing the home. He says he has the money to purchase the house and begin work immediately. Within the first 30 days of purchase, he will have the exterior property cleaned up and the interior cleanup well underway. His goal is to have the house completed within 6 to 9 months. So I think it would be reasonable to say, you know, within 30 days, you have to have the exterior of the home cleaned up. That's the part that obviously is the most visible to the public. And have any pending notice of violations, you know, as far as substandard housing and whatnot on the outside remedy. And then, you know, be up to the board. You could say substantial completion within 6 months. And then we can go out and take a look at it from there.
So 30 days for the exterior remediations as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least and I don't remember if there's, you know, what the exterior issues are as far as code violations, but at least to have started fixing those issues.
Okay, Mr. Fry, would you like to speak? And if you could come to the podium and speak from the microphone, that way everyone will be able to hear you, as well as your voice and we have a camera on the podium so people can see you who are watching. And the light will be green if it's set for you to speak. So there's a button you can push if the light's not green. Nope, to the right.
You're good. Okay.
It's on? Okay. And then you can also put it down on the podium if that's easier.
Good evening, Carl Fry, 515 Club Road. Yes, I'm going to fix the house up for my daughter and my grandson. That's my intent of it. The outside has a lot of trash and debris from where the previous owners. So I'm just going to clean it up really good on the outside to start with and just kind of get it presentable from the street. And then I'm going to clean up from the inside. I've already spoken with Herman. Once I get everything cleaned up really good, he's going to come out and give me a courtesy inspection, tell me what he expects it to be in the end, and then I'll just start from there.
Okay, can you work with the timeframes that were suggested? 30 days, you'll clear up the exterior, the trash and things like that? Any mowing or overgrown? Okay, and then 30 days to make progress on the pending notices of violations relating to the outside?
Oh, yes.
Okay, and then substantial completion of the outside and the interior in 6 months?
Yes, 6 to 9 months. Yes.
Okay. All right, does the board have any questions of Mr. Fry?
We're gonna give him 9 months, right? 6 to 9. Cool, okay. So,
Any other questions of Mr. Fry? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, do I have a motion? I'm going to need your microphone.
Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion to temporarily delay the demolition of the property under the terms and conditions that we set out here tonight.
Okay, that's 30 days exterior cleanup.
Correct.
Within 30 days, the remediate or make progress towards remediating any exterior issues and substantial completion of the interior within 6 to 9 months.
Yes, ma'am, that would be my motion.
Ms. Garner, is that something your staff can work with?
We will do our best.
Is there anything we're overlooking that ought to be in that motion?
I think we would like clarification on when does the 30 days start? Is it from closing or is that to close? That would help us keep track of milestones with Mr. Fry.
When do you expect to close? Oh, can you come forward so we can hear you better? When do you expect to close on the house?
So Ms. Norman and I are going to the lawyers on Thursday. That's when we'll start.
Oh, we need to hear. Could you put the microphone back down so we can hear you
Sure.
again?
Ms. Norman, the owner, and I will be in the lawyer's office this Thursday.
Okay.
And that's when we'll start the proceedings about buying the house. Now, as far as the closing, sometimes that can take a few weeks. I could call, I could let Herman know as soon as I purchase the house, if that's okay, or I can call anybody here if they want a notice of when I purchase the house. I can let you know exactly when that date is, when I close.
Chris, what do you think is a reasonable time frame for closing?
Based on the nature of what he's dealing with, it could be a little while. I mean, because if it's almost a foreclosure and they're having to deal with an attorney and a bank, it could be 30 days. I don't know. I'm just not sure where they are.
What do you think, Mr.
I would just
Swisher?
have him call Herman or Catherine once he closes on the house, and then the 30 days starts from the time he closes on it. That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
So can we say that he needs to close on the house within 90 days or?
The problem here is you got to get a clear title.
Okay.
And that may be easy to do, and that might not be. And,
It's hard to leave this.
That's the problem.
It's hard to leave this delay out there.
Well, I understand.
For,
As long as the lawyer's making a good effort to get a clear title to him, that's what we want for him, and that's what he wants. And he'll do it as fast as he can. But sometimes you get somebody out of state, and you got to chase somebody down and get them to sign something.
I think, from my understanding, Ms. Norman has the authority to sell the house and move forward, but I think if it's been 30 days and we haven't heard anything from Mr. Fry about him closing on the house, and I think we can certainly check in on it and say, hey, are you going to get this thing closed? And then find out. I mean, and this board meets twice a month. It would only be 2 weeks. Once, say in 30 days, he hasn't closed on it. We can have it back to you all within 2 weeks, and you can move forward with the demolition. So
I could give you updates too.
yeah, I would say just, have him notify Herman if it's been 30 days and we haven't heard anything, then we can certainly check with Mr. Fry or Ms. Norman, see where we are on it.
Okay, 30 days from Friday, how about?
But could I kind of interject something there,
ahead.
Curtis, just in case, there is some delays that we're not aware of, or he might not be aware of, that, if after the 30-day period he has that closed, that we had the option to extend it, with a reasonable explanation why to extend.
Yeah, I think that's fair, yeah.
Okay, so I have a motion from Alderman Barrow. Got a second?
Second.
Joe, Chris got to it before you did, but he didn't have his microphone on. So we got a second from Mayor Pro Tem Thompson. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, so we hope for good news on Thursday.
Very good.
And thank you for doing this.
And thank you so much. I appreciate
Good luck
your
to
time.
you.
Okay, what's next, Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor and Board, I have spoken to you regarding the need for an additional building inspector sooner rather than later. It was an item that personnel position that would have been requested in the fiscal year 24-25 budget here in the next couple of months. But I've spoken with Catherine and she's in need of that position now. As you see in the memo, we currently, all of our inspectors are level 3 certified in one particular trade or another. But, it's kind of tough now, especially on the side of just having one level 3 inspector in each trade. If that inspector's out and we need someone to go out and do a level 3 inspection, it just delays that trade. For instance, our level 3 plumbing inspector, if he's out and we don't have another one to back him up, then it delays that trade. Also, as you can see in the packet, we at one time had more inspectors than we currently have. We reduced the workforce back in 2009 or 10 and have not added that position back, even though we probably have as much, if not more, growth now than we had prior to 2010. So we're asking for that position now. Catherine has just about enough money left in salaries and wages and community development, or will have enough left to cover that salary for the rest of this year. So it won't be an impact on her budget necessarily for salaries and wages. I'll be glad to answer any questions. She can give you the specifics as well. But we're in that position now with the growth and development, especially with a lot of it being commercial and apartments. All of those are level 3 that we have to have.
All right, any questions? Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Thompson, second. Second, Alderman Barrow, all in favor? It's unanimous. All right, next item.
Catherine, if you can pull up the map for this. And
Catherine,
so they can
hire
see
this
it.
person fast, okay? We got 566 apartments.
We're trying.
Okay,
We're trying.
okay.
This is a map the board approved several months ago, Woodbine Townhomes. So it was a parcel at the corner of Woodbine Street and Salisbury Street, right beside of the Kernersville Community House. And you can see the map there. After he did his site plan, site layout and whatnot, the hatched areas to the north there on the map, one half of that, the lower part of it is, or the part to the right, is a biocell retention stormwater device. And he has to have that to make this site work. And also the little stub out there for the turnaround in the parking lot. So That wasn't necessarily anticipated. When he did his initial site layout, he has reduced the number of units from the plan that came to you all. It's a better plan. This is a better plan, really, than what he brought to the board that got approved. If the board approves this to move forward with this land swap, he will have to bring this back for rezoning since it goes over on 2 parcels. So it's what he has asked is if the town would be willing to sell him the right-hand side there where the hatched out marks are. It's what we discussed and it's what we have agreed to, the developer will agree to, is the property there that goes to the left up to Salisbury Street is a community house property. So there's been some talk in previous years about expanding the parking lot and whatnot. Anything we do on that site, we'll have to do a biocell pond. So we talked to the developer and said, look, you've got to build a pond. How about building one big enough that if we expand the parking lot or expand the community house, then we can share your pond to catch the town's runoff. He's agreed to do that. He's made the pond big enough that it will carry the town's water as well as his. We've worked it out. The cost, if we went in and built a pond like we would need it, it would be about $35,000 to $40,000. The value of the land that he needs from the town is about 9,000 square feet. The value of the land is about $35,000 to $40,000. So it's what we're asking the board to do is give approval for this swap, whereas we give him the land, he builds the pond, then we'll work through the easements of the town being able to use that pond in the future for its water runoff. It will require, Keith and I were looking today, it's a land swap or exchange. We think we can do it that way, though we're not real sure. But either way, it will require a public hearing, require a public notice on that. This would be the first step, the board giving approval to do that, and then we would advertise a public hearing on this land exchange and come back to you all for that. In the meantime, the developer will be revising his site plan, filing it to go through the rezoning process and bringing it back to you all to rezone the site plan as you see it. So it's kind of several steps in there that we'd be working on at the same time. We would put a condition in there that if something happens and he decides not to do this plan, just scrap it and sell the property, that this property would revert back to the town, or the parcel that the town is trading him out would revert back to the town. So we think it's a good deal. It works out good for the town, and that we can get a pond. We're going to have to build one either way to do any useful expansion of the parking lot or the community house.
It'd be specific to this particular developer, not run with the land.
Correct, because another developer may come in and not, they might build 2 houses on that parcel and not need the land. So at that point, we would just get it back and use it at some point in the future if we needed it.
So would you be able to meet with the people, the Woman's Club who has been taking care of the community house for so long, so they would know, we're not selling the land, basically. We're just trying to leave room for future expansion of the parking lot.
Yeah, I'd be glad to meet with some of their representatives. They're the ones that asked about expanding the parking lot. So, this would be the first step kind of in allowing them to do that if they ever wanted to do it.
It just could be a little bit alarming to see a public hearing notice on this property without knowing why.
Yeah, I'll be glad to talk to them.
Okay.
Mayor, I have one other question.
Yes.
We're putting this pond in close proximity to a residential project. What kind of fencing is required around that to protect kids from having an accident? And that's not a fair question because I'm blindsiding you with it.
I don't think there's anything required in any residential areas as far as fencing goes around stormwater ponds. I don't think.
I just don't know, so I can't answer that.
I'd love to. It's unfair for me to ask you that question, but I guess being a parent for longer than some, I guess I'm sensitive to that kind of thing. I'd hate to read about a kid who fell in that pond and
The bus stop there does have a lot of children at it. That
That's
would
right.
fine.
That's right. It would be this, and I say it because I've been through several neighborhoods. I've seen stormwater ponds and no fencing, so we'll look and let you know, but I don't.
They fill up with dirt pretty quickly, don't they? So it wouldn't be very, they fill up with dirt pretty quick, don't they?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be very deep anyhow.
It's not gonna be real deep, but I honestly don't remember. I think I've seen several of them in neighborhoods without a fence. I have seen some with a fence, but I don't think there's any requirement, whether it's residential, commercial, or whatever it may be. But we can find out and let you know. Thank you very much. And that would be something that would be I mean, it would be a condition, of course, of the rezoning and the site plan approval. They would just follow the conditions in the UDO, but that'd be something we can let you, if the board moves forward with this, and then when he comes back for rezoning, we can certainly let you know at that time.
You don't have a requested motion. Do you want the board to vote on this?
I think if the board would make a motion to either move forward with the land swap with Woodbine Townhomes or to not move forward, one or the other. And then if the board votes to move forward, we will take the next steps of doing the public hearing advertisement, getting it back before the board, and everything that goes along with that. Mayor, I'd move that we move forward.
Okay, got a motion to move forward by Alderman Apple, second by Mayor Pro Tem Thompson. All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, matters to be presented by the town attorney.
My report tonight is I hope to see all of you a lot better next week.
Mr. Swisher, did you have anything additional that wasn't listed on the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, matters to be presented by the mayor and board of aldermen. First, I'd like to thank Alderman Penix for representing us well for the American Heart Association. Again, and Wear Red for Women's Health. They had a lot of information in the proclamation, which I believe we've posted online. Is that right, Keith? Under our proclamations tab?
I believe that's available now, yes.
A little known
If not,
spot.
I'll make sure it is.
A little known spot in Civic Web under the meeting agendas is actually mayoral proclamations. And so there's a lot of good statistics about health and wellness that the American Red Cross is highlighting this year, especially this year with women's health, so and heart disease. So thank you, Joe, for representing us.
Well, I was honored to represent you. I'm certain I've used their services that they donate to many times in my life, so I appreciate what they do.
Do you have anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Gorob?
Yes, I would like to take this opportunity to strongly recommend that all the members of this board and town officers and administrators to go to see a movie entitled Origin that's playing at the Aperture Theater downtown Winston-Salem on 4th Street to give you a fresh perspective on how race relations have evolved in our country. It's a real eye-opener, and I think it would help for everyone to see a movie such as that. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I strongly suggest that if you have the time between now and next Tuesday to attend. I saw it last night, and it was a really refreshing, and it opened my eyes, and I would like to invite all of us to attend that movie and see what I saw. Thank you.
Thank you. Origin.
She put it
Put
together.
your mic back on.
Ava DuVernay is the producer of that movie.
Mr. Apple. Mr. Barrow. Wait, you need your microphone. Wait. Chris, hand me your mic.
A couple of things.
Thank you.
Number one, thank you, Curtis, for working on the sidewalk. That's going to happen, and that's needed, and I appreciate that. Number two, we got to work on the pool, and I appreciate the work you've done on that. We'll keep pushing forward on that and try to make that happen. And I can't remember what number 3 was. I didn't put my notes up, but thank you very much. The pool, number 3 also.
We might get the pool done before the sidewalk. You never know. Even though it started 15 years ago.
Maybe 18 years ago. It's been a day. Chris?
I have nothing, thank you.
I wanted to give a shout out to Doran. Thank you for calling NCDOT on that road project we referenced earlier tonight. The contractor took down a lot of lights and then put the light fixtures back up, but failed to turn on the lights, and still has not turned on the lights there at Piney Grove and Linville Springs and down towards Wooddale and up towards Kingston and down towards the gas line. But it's a little better than it first was, and there are a lot of trucks out there that appear to be related to Duke Energy and their subcontractors. So thank you for following up with NCDOT and Duke Energy for me. I appreciate it. And as you saw from the people that stood, there are a lot of other people who drive through that intersection every day. What? What do you mean?
When they took them down, at least they didn't take them with them.
Yeah, they took them down and then they moved the poles and then they put them back up. But yes, that was a concern. I think that that is going to be challenging with all of the different housing developments and road construction in that area for the next little bit. So I appreciate the staff's help in following up about that. I think we're also going to need to consider the road name of this new segment that's going to go from Piney Grove to 150. And there seems to be some merit to naming it Macy Grove Road, and there seems to be some merit to naming it Linville Springs. So I'm trying to work with the town manager and community development and public services right now to get some of the parameters for the naming and some of the situation as it currently exists organized, and then we'll take it up as a board. We've talked with NCDOT, and according to NCDOT, naming that road is our responsibility and our right, and that we can go ahead and name it before the road work is completed. So I think that may solve some confusion for people if we go ahead and name it pretty soon, and that way people can stop talking about it as an extension road or a project number, and we can refer to it as the road name that we're planning. And so there'll be emergency services considerations, there'll be postal address considerations, there'll be north, south, east, west considerations, the style of the road, all of that. So there's a lot to think about in deciding what we name. Historical considerations, because there's that legend about George Washington visiting the Linville Springs and a child giving him a drink and him giving the child a coin, because presidents pay for their drink of water from the spring, whereas a king would expect it just be given to them. So there's a lot involved in this, so we'll need to work on it as a board. So if you have any thoughts or considerations, please let me know. All right, is there anything further before this board this evening? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn? Got a motion by Alderman Thompson, or Mayor Pro Tem Thompson. Second by Alderman Penix. All in favor? It's unanimous. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for joining us.